What if the immovable stone gaze of the Great Sphinx of Giza has been concealing a secret so ancient and profound that it could rewrite the history of human civilization? In the rippling heat haze of the Egyptian desert, where the sands whisper stories older than recorded time, the Sphinx stands sentinel, its missing nose a silent testament to centuries of mystery and myth. Beneath its weathered paws, hidden in shadows and dust, lies a riddle that has beckoned explorers, scholars, and dreamers to risk everything in pursuit of an answer. Long before the first European traveler sketched its silhouette in faded sepia, the Sphinx was already ancient, etched into a bygone age under the reign of Pharaoh Khafre around 2500 BCE. Stoneworkers quarried the limestone bedrock of the Giza Plateau, fashioning a lion's body with a royal visage that gazed eternally toward the rising sun. Yet even as the face of Khafre emerged from the rock, whispers of hidden chambers began to stir, carried on the desert wind, and whispered among priests who once worshipped the creature as a divine intermediary. By the time Thutmose IV ascended the throne in 1400 BCE, the Sphinx had already languished under millennia of sand. Legend holds that the future pharaoh was but a young prince when he dreamt of the Sphinx speaking to him, promising him the crown if he would free the colossal monument from burial. He erected the dream stele between its paws, inscribing the tale of this nocturnal revelation and hinting at something that lay deeper still, something he claimed that even the gods had commanded him to reveal. Centuries later, Greek historians such as Herodotus marveled at the Sphinx and recorded tales of corridors reaching beneath its paws. Herodotus spoke of secret tunnels rumored to lead to grand halls underground, yet he also cautioned that these stories bordered on the fantastical. For even in 450 BCE, the boundary between myth and reality was already blurred by time. Jump ahead to the dawn of the 19th century when European explorers equipped with nothing but shovel sketchbooks and unyielding curiosity arrived at the plateau. Giovanni Battista Caviglia, an Italian adventurer and self-taught excavator, pried away tons of sand in the early 1800s, only to find a shallow cavity where legends claimed a staircase should descend. His disappointment did not deter others. A swarm of Egyptologists followed, each convinced that beneath the Sphinx's paw lay a treasure trove of knowledge, texts, scrolls, even evidence of a lost civilization predating the Old Kingdom. In 1925, French engineer Émile Barrès undertook a massive clearance operation working for 10 years to expose the Sphinx almost completely. Despite his painstaking efforts and detailed maps, Barrès concluded the paws hid no entrance, only fractured bedrock and catacombs of fractured debris. Yet rumors persisted, fueled by tales of Masonic lodges convening in secrecy, claiming that Egyptian priests had encoded cryptic messages within the Sphinx's geometry, spacing and orientation messages accessible only to those initiated into arcane rites. By mid-20th century, radar technology offered a new way to peer beneath the Titan's body without disturbing a single grain of sand. In 91, a French team employed ground-penetrating radar detecting anomalies under the paw's voids and void-like shapes that defied simple geological explanation. While some scientists attributed these irregularities to natural cavities formed by water erosion over millennia, others whispered of man-made tunnels hewn by ancient hands, perhaps intended as a repository for arcane wisdom, too dangerous to leave in plain sight. Dr. Robert Schoch, an American geologist and Egyptologist, famously proposed that the Sphinx's weathering patterns suggested far greater age, perhaps dating back to 7000 BCE or earlier. If correct, his water erosion theory implied the Sphinx predated known Egyptian civilization by thousands of years. And if the Sphinx was that ancient, what secrets might its creators have interred below the paw knowledge of a civilization lost to time, erased by rising seas or cataclysmic floods? In the Palestinian desert, Bedouin legends spoke of the Sphinx as a gateway to worlds unknown. Elders described how on certain moonlit nights, the stars aligned so precisely that a beam of light sliced through the desert air, striking a hidden panel beneath the right paw and illuminating hieroglyphs invisible by day. No foreign explorer ever recorded this phenomenon save for a hushed mention in the notes of an English officer in 1882 who claimed to have glimpsed letters glowing in phosphorescent ink only to see them vanish by dawn's first light. The discovery, or rather the rediscovery, of the dream stele in the late 19th century did little to quell the speculation. For though it recounted Thutmose IV's divine encounter, it hinted at a pathway not carved by mere mortals. I cleared thy forehead, and in thy name, my name will live forever. Scholars debated whether clearing the forehead was literal or symbolic, but many agreed that the true revelation awaited those bold enough to pursue the Sphinx's whispered promise. In '92, a NASA-affiliated radar survey conducted by Dr. Salim Hassan revealed yet more anomalies. Under the left paw, the radar signature suggested a rectangular chamber stretching 18 meters into the earth, lined with stone blocks differing from the surrounding geology. When scholars reviewed the data, some suggested these blocks matched no known construction style from Khafre's era, but perhaps from an earlier culture, one that vanished before the dawn of dynastic Egypt. Since that revelation, modern archaeologists have tread cautiously, mindful of both political sensitivities and the risk of damaging priceless antiquities. The Egyptian Supreme Council of Antiquities approved limited access in 2003, allowing a team led by Dr. Zahi Hawass to insert a narrow camera probe. Its grainy images showed a sealed corridor, the stones walled up with packing blocks and plaster that bore no visible hieroglyphs, only chisel marks and odd triangular notches whose purpose defied easy explanation. Some experts argue those notches were simply quarrying remnants, evidence that workers had tunneled there thousands of years ago before abandoning their effort. Others maintain they are deliberate markings, possibly direction indicators, pointing to a hidden chamber, deeper still, one that no camera has yet glimpsed. Among these theorists is Graham Hancock, the British author, who posited that the Sphinx and the Great Pyramid are far older than Orthodox Egyptology allows sentinels of a lost civilization that perished in the cataclysms at the end of the last ice age. Yet the official narrative holds firm. The Sphinx was carved during Khafre's reign, and its subterranean features are mere natural cavities or unfinished excavation shafts. To endorse any other theory is to tread on dangerous ground where mainstream scholars risk their reputations and funding. Even so, the allure persists in hushed corridors within Oxford, Cambridge, and the Sorbonne, where a handful of dissenters pore over seismic data, magnetometric readings, and stray artifacts recovered from unauthorized digs. But what of the ancients themselves? In the temples of Luxor and Karnak, priests left no overt records indicating they believed in chambers beneath the Sphinx, yet they etched cryptic references to a hidden heart of the monster, a place where knowledge sleeps until worthy eyes awaken it. One particular papyrus fragment, discovered in a tomb near Deir el-Medina in 1898, mentions the day when the lion will open its mouth and reveal the tongue of God, hinting at a ritual that once activated a mechanism thought to pierce the stone facade. Some suggest this prophecy refers to Thutmose IV's sleight of hand, his partial excavation as a coding ritual, not the true unlocking of the Sphinx. According to this view, the dream stele masks a greater secret that the Sphinx's designers intended to return at some distant epoch to complete the work, leaving behind false trails to deter all but the initiated. Perhaps this was why in 525 BCE, when Cambyses II of Persia invaded Egypt, he allegedly ordered an assault on the Sphinx. Classical authors like Herodotus claim the Persians struck at the statue's face with arrows and anachronistic weapons. Some historians dismiss these accounts as fanciful, attributing the damage to later iconoclasts or natural erosion. Yet the notion that invaders would seek to destroy an entrance beneath the paw, that they believed something lay hidden there, compels a deeper look. In modern times, treasure hunters, conspiracy theorists, and self-styled alternative archaeologists converge on Giza like moths to a flame. They claim to have deciphered secret glyphs on the surrounding temple walls indicating the paw shelters, a tunnel leading to the Hall of Records, a fabled repository of ancient wisdom. This hall is said to house scrolls containing astronomical data maps of vanished continents and spiritual doctrines that could unite all faiths under a common truth. Not everyone subscribes to these grand visions. Dr. Amina Hassan, an Egyptologist at Cairo University, warns that such theories risk overshadowing the Sphinx's true miracle, its very survival through millennia of human ignorance, war, and neglect. Yet even she admits that the unexplained radar anomalies and conflicting stratigraphic layers cannot be brushed aside as mere academic footnotes. Meanwhile, fringe researchers point to the so-called Serapeum corridor, a small shaft that aligns with the paw when viewed from a precise angle at dawn on the summer solstice. They argue this alignment proves the Sphinx functioned as a cosmic gateway, activated only when the constellation Leo rose in the eastern sky, a secret encoded by its original builders, to synchronize earthbound architecture with celestial events. To skeptics, this is proof positive of pseudo-archaeology. To believers, it is a directive whispered across ages, urging seekers to rise before dawn and witness the moment when shadow and stone converge. Recent technological advances have breathed new life into the debate. In 2020, a multidisciplinary team used muon tomography particles from cosmic rays that pass through solid stone to map voids with unprecedented precision. Their preliminary findings hinted at a larger undisclosed chamber measuring roughly 30 meters long, lying directly beneath the Sphinx's torso, too large to be a natural formation. As whispers of this revelation spread through academic circles, the Egyptian government tightened security, banning independent drone flights over the plateau and limiting excavation permits. Critics allege this censorship is meant to protect national heritage. Others suspect it aims to conceal something far more consequential. Rumors persist that a private consortium backed by shadowy financiers has funded covert digs under the cover of night, hoping to unearth an artifact capable of changing everything we know about human origins. Should such claims prove true, the era of scholarly consensus would shatter. Images cloaked in midnight darkness, bodies in hard hats carrying stone tablets, the silent hum of heavy machinery, all might become the new truth revealed at last beneath the Sphinx's paw. But even if a grand hall or ancient library emerges, will it be accepted by a world unprepared to confront its own forgotten past? Consider the spiritual implications. For centuries, Sufi mystics have viewed the Sphinx as a touchstone of esoteric knowledge, a living symbol that connects the physical realm to the metaphysical. In their poetry, they describe the lion's paw as a fingerprint of God on earth, a pivot where divine energy seeps into human consciousness. To open the chamber within would be to awaken an echo of creation, an unbroken chain linking our world to an ancient dream. And yet, with every scientific test, every drill bit, and every clandestine expedition, the Sphinx remains unchanged in outward appearance, its secret still fiercely guarded by time, sand, and stone. Perhaps this is by design to challenge the hubris of men who rush to unravel mysteries before they are ready to hear their answers. Or perhaps it is simply the will of the ages preserving a truth we may never fully comprehend. Dawn breaks again over the plateau, gilding the Sphinx's contours with the first pale rays of sunlight. Under its watchful eyes, tourists gather, snapping careless photographs, unaware that their cameras cannot capture the whispers that stir beneath the paw. The secrets endure, waiting for the moment when a worthy seeker will listen, decipher the silent code, and finally open the door to a past that has slumbered beneath the sands for millennia. In the end, the question remains, are we ready to face what lies hidden in the darkness beneath the paw of the world's oldest guardian? The winds of dawn stir the fine sand around the Sphinx, revealing patterns that dance like whispers of bygone eras, as though the desert itself conspires to keep the hidden chamber safe. Few realize that the same winds once carried the chants of ancient priests who believed the Sphinx embodied the union of cosmic forces, earthly lion's might, intertwined with the intellect of a man, a bridge between mortal and divine. In those chants, fragments of a ritual endure the hour of the lion, a fleeting moment when light and shadow aligned over the right paw, as if unlocking an invisible door. Imagine standing atop a makeshift platform of finely woven mats surrounded by artisans and architects who toiled under the blistering sun, chiseling away at limestone blocks that now form the floor of a grand hall hidden below. They worked in near silence, save for the rhythmic clang of chisels and the low hum of incantations meant to ward off malevolent spirits. By day, their hands shaped stone. By night, they traced constellations above, convinced their work would one day fulfill a prophecy inscribed in a secret papyrus, one that spoke of a civilization older than the Nile itself. When European explorers first deciphered portions of this text in the late 1800s, they dismissed it as allegory or mysticism. Yet when ground-penetrating radar detected voids under the forearms of the Sphinx engineers realized the possibility of a network of corridors leading to a central chamber, perhaps the sanctum itself. Dr. Hassan's team recorded temperature differentials at precise locations beneath the surface, noticing that certain spots hovered a degree cooler than the surrounding rock, unusual for midday desert heat. In that cool hush beneath the burning sun, rumors surfaced of a sealed stone doorway concealed behind natural erosion, one that bore no seams but seemed almost alive, as if waiting for the right key. Local Bedouin aloud whispered of an old man who claimed to have glimpsed a glint of metal plates under the sand at the base of the pause plates, etched with symbols no living scholar had yet cataloged. He dared not speak these words within earshot of outsiders, fearing retribution from authorities who might already be complicit in guarding a secret too potent to reveal. Meanwhile, a young geophysicist from the University of Alexandria, Dr. Karim Fathi, assembled a team to conduct a seismic refraction survey. They hammered vibrators into the ground, measuring the echoes beneath the Sphinx's weighty bulk, hoping to map any subterranean anomalies. The data suggested a cavity directly below the statue's chest, aligned with the heart of the structure, an expansive space nearly 20 meters long, its walls seemingly hollowed with intent rather than nature's whim. Archaeologists watched in silent anticipation as Dr. Fathi's team prepared to drill a small exploratory borehole no wider than a wrist. Months of bureaucratic delays ensued as permissions shuffled through government offices cloaked in secrecy. By the time the drill pierced through compacted debris, the world held its breath, hoping, fearing, praying that whatever lay beyond would confirm a narrative far older than any textbook could convey. On that fateful morning, a thin column of dust erupted as metal met stone. Cameras perched atop steel tripods recorded every second, transmitting feed to monitors inside an air-conditioned tent. At precisely 2:13 p.m. local time, the drill bit shattered a thin layer of plaster, revealing wood grain beneath the edge of an ancient door, surprisingly well preserved despite centuries of burial. When the team carefully pried away fragments of plaster, they discovered a triangular wedge of cedar bearing a faded inlay of turquoise and lapis lazuli. The pattern resembled the Eye of Horus, encircled by tiny glyphs that danced across the wood like constellations. As the first rays of sunset slanted into the opening, those glyphs seemed to glow faintly, as though charged by the dying sunlight, an effect that defied chemical explanation. Inside, the air lay cool and still, filled with the scent of ancient resin and something else, something metallic like the breath of a timekeeper. Slender shafts of light from handheld torches revealed walls lined with crystalline protrusions, glinting like star fragments embedded in the limestone. Dr. Fathi whispered that the geometry of the chamber mirrored the alignment of Orion's belt on the winter solstice, an astronomical alignment worshipped by ancient Egyptians as the gateway to immortality. They found steps leading downward, each stone polished smooth by centuries of untouched stillness. In that hush, communicated more through glances than words, the team recognized the gravity of what they had uncovered, a corridor leading not just beneath a monument, but beneath the veil of recorded history. Every footfall echoed like a heartbeat, as though the Sphinx itself were warning them to proceed with reverence. At the corridor's end loomed a massive stone door, carved with depictions of a lion-headed deity holding an ankh aloft, an image unseen in any formal temple relief. The iconography blended traditional Egyptian motifs with something otherworldly. The deity's eyes were inlaid with a single piece of obsidian, absorbing light as though gazing into the viewer's soul. Beneath the carvings ran an inscription in Old Egyptian, hinting at a promise of renewal and warning that only the one who knows the 5 keys could pass through. No one truly knew what those 5 keys were, a figurative reference to philosophical truths some speculated. A literal code deciphered only by high priests, others believed. Some theorists point to the story of the Emerald Tablet preserved by mystics in Hellenistic Alexandria, suggesting one of those keys lies hidden in Hermetic teachings that once flourished beside the Nile. The ancient Greek philosopher Iamblichus wrote of hieroglyphs so potent that they spoke directly to the heart rather than the tongue, implying that these inscriptions were meant to be felt, not merely read. Even as the team examined the door, careful not to disturb its precarious balance, modern engineers prepared to scan it with LiDAR, hoping to capture every minute detail. But the LiDAR scans revealed faint vibrations like the whisper of incantations long since silenced, an anomalous reading that even seasoned technicians found unnerving. It was as though the stone itself resonated with a language just beyond comprehension, sending ripples through the scanner's algorithms. As the night deepened, torches flickered and shadows lengthened, creating the illusion that spectral figures danced upon the walls. Fati recited a protective prayer, an ancient invocation taught to him by his grandfather, who had once served as a guardian of sacred texts. He believed those words offered shelter in this place, where the boundary between mortal realm and divine mystery felt perilously thin. Suddenly, a soft click echoed through the chamber, an unexpected sound that stilled every breath. A hidden mechanism, perhaps triggered by the disturbance of drilling, had shifted a stone slab, revealing a narrow slit wide enough to admit a thin beam of moonlight. That beam struck the obsidian eyes of the lion-headed deity, causing a reflected shimmer to dance across the walls, a silent confirmation that the chamber responded to astronomical alignments even in its sealed state. Neither engineer nor archaeologist could explain why this occurred precisely at midnight. To Dr. Fati, it was a sign that the ancients had designed the chamber to speak at a time when the veil between worlds thinned, when the sky's constellations aligned with secrets on Earth. He felt a mixture of exhilaration and dread, wondering if in unlocking the door, they would unearth not just history, but something that might challenge the very notion of human identity. The team withdrew to plan a careful entry, understanding that the world above awaited news that could alter textbooks, religious doctrines, and perhaps the future of archaeology itself. As they ascended back into the cool desert night, stars flickered overhead, indifferent to the human drama unfolding far below. And beneath their feet, the Sphinx's paw remained silent, its secret poised on the brink of revelation, waiting for the next heartbeat to decide whether the world was ready to know. A cold wind swept across the plateau as the team gathered their instruments under the indifferent gaze of the full moon. Dr. Fati's heart pounded as he exchanged solemn nods with his colleagues, each aware that the next step would bind them forever to the Sphinx's secret. They carried no more than headlamps, a portable spectrometer, and a single torch, tools meant not to conquer, but to respectfully illuminate what lay hidden for millennia. When they returned to the carved doorway, the air felt heavier, as if the stone itself exhaled a warning. Their boots crunched over scattered chippings of limestone, stirring tiny plumes of dust that settled like a fine mist beneath their feet. Each breath they drew tasted of ancient resin and a faint metallic tang reminiscent of blood aged by time. Mahum. A thin brass rod carried by the lead engineer fit precisely into a small notch at chest height, a notch the probing drill had revealed. As the rod slid into place, a low hum resonated through the corridor, so subtle that only those standing close enough could perceive it. The chamber's granite walls vibrated ever so slightly, sending ripples through their body armor and echoing like a distant heartbeat. With measured force, they levered the rod downward, and the massive stone door groaned on unseen hinges. A shaft of pale moonlight poured through the opening, illuminating a sliver of the chamber's interior, a triangular vault lined with polished obsidian panels that swallowed light whole. Their headlamps revealed an expanse of floor etched with concentric circles and cryptic runes glinting faintly as if etched by a tool of celestial origin. Stepping inside, Dr. Fati felt the ground give way to a mosaic of ivory and black stones. The mosaic formed a pattern so precise it seemed less a work of human hands than a map of the stars themselves. Orion's threefold belt, Sirius blazing below, and faint tracings of distant galaxies. Each piece of stone fit seamlessly, as though carved by masters who understood the language of both earth and sky. An oppressive silence enveloped them, broken only by their breathing and the soft click of camera shutters. The odor of ancient incense, long since evaporated in the open air, clung to the walls, a chemical signature now detectable by their portable spectrometer. It confirmed traces of myrrh and frankincense, substances reserved for royal tombs and sacred rites, not mere tombs of pharaohs. A head of pedestal of black granite emerged from the center of the chamber, crowned by a crystal sphere larger than a human head. Veins of milky quartz swirled within the sphere, refracting the narrow beams of light into dancing ribbons of color across the walls. The sphere seemed to pulse in rhythm with the hum they had heard moments before, as though it possessed a life force tethered to the room's very foundation. At the pedestal's base lay a small chest of gilded bronze, its surface etched with intertwined lotuses and papyrus motifs. Tiny keyholes, 5 in total, greeted the observers, perfectly spaced to correspond with the points of a pentagram subtly engraved on the floor. Dr. Fathi ran his fingers along the grooves of the pentagram, feeling a resonance beneath his fingertips, as if an echo of long-forgotten chants vibrated through the stone. They realized there was no turning back. Whatever rested inside the chest might hold truths capable of unraveling the fabric of accepted history, yet to leave without unveiling it felt like forsaking the very reason they had journeyed so far, to honor the legacy of those who had labored in reverent secrecy. A sudden tremor rippled beneath their boots, a gentle, almost imperceptible shaker that seemed to acknowledge their presence. The crystal sphere's veins brightened, sending a cascade of prismatic light into the chamber, momentarily blinding the team. When their vision cleared, the pedestal's surface bore fresh scratches, as though something had shifted deep within the stone, now awaiting discovery. The lead engineer, his voice hushed, spoke first. "We must find those keys." He lifted his lamp to study the bronze chest's 5 keyholes, each rimmed with tiny hieroglyphic symbols too intricate to decipher at a glance. He hypothesized that each symbol corresponded to an Egyptian concept: Ma'at, truth; Neb, Lord Caper, transformation; Sekhem, power; and Djd, stability. Keys not only physical but philosophical. One by one, they retrieved small artifacts they had carefully brought. A gold amulet inscribed with the Ankh, a carved obsidian scarab, a fragment of papyrus bearing faded script, a miniature statue of Thoth, and a bronze mirror engraved with a stylized solar disk. Each piece fit into its corresponding keyhole, as though summoned by the room itself. The hum swelled into a deep, sonorous chant vibrating through their bones, and the crystal sphere began to rotate slowly, casting refracted light that traced new patterns on the obsidian walls. With the final artifact in place, a hidden mechanism clicked and sent a portion of the chamber's floor sliding aside in a single graceful movement. A narrow spiral staircase revealed itself, descending into near total darknesses beyond the reach of their lamps. For a moment, the team froze, suspended between awe and fear, aware that each step might lead deeper into a labyrinth of secrets or seal their fate forever beneath the desert's shifting sands. Fathi took a breath and stepped onto the first stair, the polished stone cool against his boots. The others followed their footsteps, resonating like distant thunder in the confined space. The air grew cooler, still tinged now with a faint aroma of lotus and decay, an olfactory reminder of the ages this place had slumbered undisturbed. After a dozen steps, their headlamps caught the glimmer of lamplight ahead. A colossal vaulted chamber emerged, its ceiling arched like a cat's ribs carved from a single block of dark basalt. Enormous pillars rose from the floor, each etched with depictions of celestial voyages, boats traversing star-strewn skies, gods leaning over cosmic waters, and pharaohs in timeless reverie. In the chamber's heart stood a stone dais upon which lay a collection of scrolls and engraved tablets arranged with meticulous care. The scrolls appeared woven from a papyrus unlike any they had encountered, fibers interlaced with traces of metallic dust that shimmered under the lamplight. Some tablets bore crystalline inlays, their characters glowing faintly as though activated by the presence of living scholars. A hush fell over the team as Dr. Fathi approached the dais, reverently brushing away centuries of dust from a scroll. The ink, though faded, formed patterns that defied conventional Egyptian scripts, intertwining hieroglyphs with strange flowing shapes reminiscent of aquatic creatures unseen in the Nile. He turned a page to reveal star charts plotting celestial events from eras that predated recorded astronomy alignments that suggested knowledge of planetary orbits discovered only in modern times. A sudden tremble ran through the chamber, a reminder that even granite could not restrain the Earth's restless bones. The crystal sphere's glow seeped through the staircase, opening, penetrating the darkness like a beacon. Time seemed suspended as they absorbed the weight of the discovery, an archive not merely of ancient Egypt, but of a civilization that bridged earth and sky, mortal and divine. As they documented each artifact with trembling hands, Dr. Fathi felt tears blur his vision. He realized that the world above, with its entrenched paradigms and academic rivalries, would struggle to accept these revelations. Yet here beneath the Sphinx's paw, the evidence lay in stone and ink, a testament to human ingenuity and a challenge to the very essence of history. When they finally retraced their steps and ascended the spiral staircase, dawn's pale light filtered through the paw's opening, greeting them as though in solemn recognition of their passage. Their cameras captured every second, every nuance of expression, fear, wonder, and the profound weight of responsibility. For now, the world awaited the unveiling of truths buried since time's dawn, and the shadow of the Sphinx would forever stretch across the fragile boundary between legend and reality. They returned to Cairo in the hush before sunrise, a city half asleep beneath a veil of sand and secrets. Fathi carried a sealed vial of metallic papyrus fragments, evidence too delicate to trust to ink and paper alone. As they disembarked from the aged jeep, the horizon bled orange, as though the desert itself knew what they carried. At the laboratory, technicians in crisp white coats gathered around the artifacts, their faces lit by sterile fluorescence rather than torchlight. Every test, spectrographic, radiocarbon, petrographic, confirmed the impossible. These scrolls dated to an era long before copper, their ink mixed with star metal dust that defied known metallurgy. Each result felt like a betrayal of everything scholars believed. Word spread rapidly through academic circles, carried on encrypted messages and whispered phone calls. Within hours, Dr. Fathi was summoned to a meeting at the Ministry of Antiquities, the ornate doors opening to a marble hallway lined with busts of pharaohs who once claimed divine knowledge. He sensed the weight of their scrutiny, as though the past and present converged to judge him. Inside the council chamber, officials studied projected images of obsidian-lined corridors and crystal spheres, their eyebrows knitted in skepticism and fear. One minister leaned forward, voice low. "If these findings are genuine, we risk unleashing truths that could undermine faith, politics, and history itself." The room held its breath as Dr. Fathi met those eyes, determined yet wary. Academic journals published a tentative press release carefully phrased to avoid sensationalism. Preliminary evidence suggests anomalous chambers beneath the Giza Plateau, possibly predating known dynasties. Within hours, social media exploded hashtags like #SphinxSecret and #Ancient Civilization trended worldwide. Conspiracy theorists pounced, declaring the discovery's proof of extraterrestrial architects. Traditionalists decried it as heretical nonsense. A hush fell over the international Egyptological community, a tension rivaling any political border dispute. Universities debated sending delegations. Foreign governments offered funding conditioned on exclusive access. Dr. Fathi watched the flood of proposals with mounting dread, recognizing that collaboration could both protect the site and also strip it of mystery forever. Late one evening, a lone figure appeared at the laboratory entrance. Professor Elena Vasquez, a renowned archaeoastronomer from Madrid. Her reputation for objective rigor preceded her. If anyone could sift truth from myth, it was she. She entered without ceremony, nodding curtly, eyes fixed on the metallic papyrus fragments. Under her magnifying glass, the text revealed star charts depicting constellations not only known to the Egyptians, but also planets unseen by naked eye, Vega Altair, even a faint ring around Saturn. Elena traced the glyphs, whispering names of celestial bodies as though in prayer. She lifted her gaze and spoke softly. These charts align with a celestial event around 10500 BCE, the Great Sphinx weathering event predicted by Hancock and Schoch. Fathi felt a chill as though the chamber's cool breath followed them into the lab. If the Sphinx was indeed carved or restored to align with a flooded world, the scrolls might document a civilization lost to rising seas. Elena's next words struck him like a thunderbolt. "We must find the side temple beneath the desert dunes. Its inscriptions could decode the Sphinx's original builders. Before they could mobilize an expedition, encrypted threats arrived emails with no return address, warning them to halt research or face dire consequences. A cryptic phrase signed each message: "The Guardian of the Paw remains vigilant." They dismissed it as intimidation, though a tremor of doubt settled in their chests. Secret meetings convened in a nondescript villa on the outskirts of Giza, where Dr. Fatih Elena and representatives from the Supreme Council discussed strategy. Maps spread across a walnut table, dust motes dancing in the lamplit room, revealing rumored temple ruins beneath shifting dunes. They identified a location west of the main plateau, marked historically as the Valley of Hidden Monarchs, a name rarely mentioned in official records. Under cover of night, a small team set out with permission to conduct non-invasive surveys, magnetometers, ground-penetrating radar, and muon detectors. The desert wind whispered warnings through their tents as generators hummed powering screens that flickered with subterranean coordinates. The instruments registered anomalies, clusters of stone blocks beneath the surface, aligned in geometric precision, clearly artificial. On the fifth night, their muon tomography revealed a downward chamber entrance, masked by 2 meters of compacted sand. Elena's voice trembled as she interpreted the data. If this is right, the side temple awaits directly beneath us, untouched for millennia. They prepared a small team for daylight excavation, conscious that every shovelful of sand could awaken unseen watchers. At dawn, under a sapphire sky, the dig began. Local laborers moved quickly, eyes darting to the horizon as though expecting Pharaoh's ghost to rise from the sand. By midday, they exposed a stone lintel carved with dual lion and human faces in iconography unseen elsewhere in Giza. Fatih and Elena knelt, brushing away grains to reveal further carvings, a procession of priests bearing what appeared to be fragments of the crystal sphere. The scene depicted a ritual, each priest attuned to a pillar, emitting radiant energy, a panorama suggesting not mere worship, but a ceremony of activation. As they photographed the carvings, Elena whispered, "This temple is a key to accessing the Sphinx's true purpose, perhaps even its burial chamber." Children from a nearby village gathered at the perimeter, their wide eyes reflecting both curiosity and awe. A local elder approached Fatih, offering an investive tale my grandfather told of a ritual when the Sphinx's paw would open, guided by music played on enchanted pipes. She plucked a flute from her tunic, its wood weathered and inscribed with familiar runes, and beckoned him to play. Hesitant, Dr. Fatih lifted the flute, its grain warm beneath his fingertips. He blew a single note, a haunting hum that seemed to resonate with the temple's stones. At once, the sand trembled, a gentle tremor that spread through the excavation pit, as though the earth recognized the sound. Above the Sphinx's paw, sheltered them from the sun, a silent spectator to their flurry of activity. Dr. Fatih felt an electric thrill course through him, as though the flute's melody bridged past and present. The laborers paused their shovels, suspended, listening to the echo of a forgotten ceremony. Moments later, ground sensors registered a shift, a subtle displacement of sand beneath the lintel. Cracks snaked across the stone threshold, revealing a narrow fissure that breathed stale air injected with the scent of ancient resin. Elena shone her lamp into the gap, revealing steps descending into blackness, a corridor leading into the temple's forbidden heart. They entered, mindful of each footfall, as lantern light flickered on alabaster walls carved with scenes of regal figures kneeling before a winged lion. At the corridor's end, they discovered a vaulted chamber, its domed ceiling painted with star maps aligning exactly with those in the scrolls. In the chamber center stood an altar, strewn with offerings of lapis gold and obsidian and otherworldly tableau that pulsed with the weight of ritual. Elena knelt to examine glyphs along the altar's base, translating their meaning aloud. "He who awakens the paw awakens the guardian of time." Dr. Fatih traced his fingers over pictographs illustrating the Sphinx's paw opening, like a massive hinged lid revealing a chamber of eternal light. He shivered as he read, picturing the moment when light and shadow converge, an event that occurs only when Orion's belt aligns with the pyramid's apex. The corridor's walls whispered echoes of chants long silent, as though guardians of stone lamenting their centuries of solitude. Their breath labored in the suffocating stillness, hearts thrumming with a mix of fear and reverence. Outside, the desert heat pressed against the carved entrance, as though yearning to reclaim the secrets they had unearthed. They emerged just as the sun crowned the horizon, its rays cresting the Sphinx and painting its silhouette in roaring gold. Shadows retreated from the plateau, but the weight of what they had found pressed upon them like a living presence. Each team member felt the burden not only of discovery, but of stewardship, aware that knowledge this potent demanded prudent guardianship. In the days that followed, international delegations arrived bearing both commendations and clandestine offers of collaboration. Political currents rippled through Cairo with whispers of treaties and protections, but also threats of exploitation by private collectors willing to trade artifacts for exorbitant sums. Dr. Fatih and Elena realized they stood at a crossroads to reveal the temple and risk sacrilege, or to guard it as a living secret until the world was ready. When the summer solstice approached, astronomers arrived to observe the celestial alignment that might once have activated the temple's sacred mechanisms. On that fateful day, stargazers gathered at dawn, scanning the sky for Orion's belt to rise precisely between the pyramids. Their instruments recorded a surge of electromagnetic energy as though the constellation itself had whispered across the void, reigniting an ancient bond. At the moment of alignment, elliptical shafts of light passed through the temple's open ceiling, striking a crystal lens embedded in the altar. A prismatic beam shot upward, visible even from the plateau, shimmering like a beacon, calling to travelers lost in time. For a fleeting instant, the Sphinx's paw seemed to glow, as though acknowledging the return of its heirs. And in that light, the world felt its heartbeat pause, caught between what was known and what awaited revelation. The winds of the desert carried the memory of that beam, whispering promises and warnings for generations to come. Beneath the silent gaze of the Sphinx, the boundary between past and future trembled, inviting all who dared to step closer into the mystery. The revelation of the prismatic beam sent ripples across the globe, like a pebble cast into a placid pond, distorting everything it touched. News crews flooded the Giza plateau at dawn, their lenses trained on the Sphinx as it gleamed under the early sun, as though the ancient monument itself had come alive. Dr. Fatih stood at the edge of the crowd, his breath coming in measured gasps as he watched journalists and onlookers strain through binoculars, desperate to capture evidence of the beam that had vanished as swiftly as it appeared. Within hours, the temple's entrance was cordoned off by armed guards, their rifles resting on shoulders as they patrolled beneath the blazing Egyptian sky. Tourists wandered aimlessly, photographing the Sphinx's weathered features, unaware of the hidden sanctum that pulsed beneath their feet, its secrets now more exposed than before. Elena moved among the labyrinth of cables and satellite dishes, her eyes reflecting blue light from rolling data screens that track social media hashtags and real-time satellite imagery of the plateau. At the Ministry of Antiquities, a crisis meeting convened behind closed doors, windowless and bathed in harsh fluorescent light. High-ranking officials droned over geopolitical ramifications, which nations would demand access, which religious bodies would decry sacrilege. Each argument felt like a weight pressing on Dr. Fatih's chest, as though the very air in the room had thickened, choking the hope that knowledge could be shared responsibly. Meanwhile, in a dimly lit office at Cairo University, Professor Amina Hassan pored over printouts of the metallic papyrus fragments. Though her heart trembled with excitement, she worried that the public fervor would overshadow the scholarly pursuit of truth, reducing millennia-old wisdom to viral sound bites. She drafted a petition urging discretion to study the temple's artifacts away from prying eyes, hoping to shield them from exploitation or vandalism. Late that night, Dr. Fatih received a message scrawled in hieratic script, delivered by an unmarked courier who vanished into the city's alleyways as quickly as he had appeared. The note read simply, "The guardians still watch. Beware the eclipse." No signature followed, only an ink blot resembling an ankh, its meaning ambiguous, yet unmistakably laden with warning. The mention of an eclipse stirred a chill in Dr. Fatih's veins, for an annular solar eclipse was predicted to pass over Egypt in a fortnight, an event shrouded in ancient portents. Elena confirmed the date on her laptop screen, noting that in antiquity, eclipses were seen as thresholds when worlds overlapped, allowing ghastly truths to seep through. She whispered, if the Guardians refer to that eclipse Perhaps the temple holds more than scrolls. Maybe a ritual chamber meant to synchronize with cosmic darkness. Under a crescent moon, Dr. Fatih and Elena slipped into the temple's corridor torchlight, flickering across walls that seemed to breathe in the cool night air. The astrological ceiling above emerged from the gloom as a map of frozen time stars and planets etched in gold leaf glinting like distant suns. Their footsteps echoed in careful cadence, a muted symphony that blended with the distant howl of desert wolves guarding the perimeter. They reached the altar where the crystal lens reclined atop its basalt dais, now untouched for days, yet charged with residual energy that pulsed beneath their skins. Elena swept her scarf across the glyphs lining the altar's rim, revealing a hidden inscription in red ochre. When the sun devours the light, the moon's shadow opens the third eye. Fatih traced the words with his trembling finger, feeling the resonance of ancient prophecy stir within him, a promise that only when the eclipse darkened the sky would a door concealed even deeper open. Beyond the altar, they discovered a narrow passage branching off to the east, obscured by rubble, as though sealing something unworthy of mortal sight. They cleared the debris, revealing a stone door inset with a circular relief of a serpent, devouring its tail, the Ouroboros, a symbol of eternity and cyclical transformation. Elena knelt to inspect the relief, deducing that the serpent's eye was a pivot point. Her fingers pressed lightly and the stone surface shimmered with fine dust, as if reluctantly acknowledging her touch. The door swung inward on silent hinges, unveiling a steep descent into the earth. The corridor narrowing until they squeezed through torches, illuminating walls carved with figures suspended between realms, soul pilots guiding themselves through starfields. The air grew cold and still charged with a pregnant tension that made every breath a conscious act. Their lamps revealed a chamber, shaped like an inverted pyramid, in its apex pointing toward the heavens, an architectural inversion of the earthly temples above. In its center lay a mosaic of turquoise and obsidian, depicting an eclipse, a black disk consuming a fiery ring, surrounded by hieroglyphs detailing a date long forgotten by humankind. The floor slopes toward a circular stone plinth upon which rested an ornate metal box, engraved with a rosette pattern, its lid secured by 3 interlocking latches, each shaped like a stylized eye. Dr. Fatih felt the weight of centuries pressing down on him as he carefully lifted the lid, revealing a bundle wrapped in fine linen cloth. Within the wrapping lay an object that defied description, a metallic disc no larger than a palm, etched with concentric circles and radial lines reminiscent of clockwork, yet its craftsmanship far surpassed any known to modern science. Engraved upon its surface were constellations and mathematical formulas that hinted at calculating celestial events with unsettling precision. Elena's breath caught as she realized the disk was a celestial computer, an ancient mechanism designed not only to predict eclipses, but perhaps to chart cosmic cycles spanning eons. A hushed vibration pulsated through the chamber as she lifted the disk, and the radial lines glowed faintly, responding to her touch, as though it recognized a chosen guardian. They watched in awe as the hidden hinge sprang open on the plinth's base, revealing a narrow shaft descending even deeper, its darkness so complete it seemed to absorb the torchlight. Dr. Fatih felt a shiver of trepidation. He knew they had stumbled into a domain reserved for the ancients themselves, perhaps the final threshold before confronting truths humanity was never meant to hold. At that moment, the distant rumble of a motor echoed through the passage, a mundane sound that felt like betrayal to the sacred hush of the hidden chamber. Shouts in Arabic reverberated, growing louder as armed guards advanced with torches and rifles, their silhouettes flickering like specters in the narrow corridor. Dr. Fatih and Elena exchanged a swift, pained glance, realizing that their chance to preserve the disk and the chamber's sanctity was slipping away. A guard's boot struck debris, sending pebbles skittering down the slope toward them, breaking the silence with harsh clacks. Elena pressed her palm against the disk, and in that instant, the radial lines glowed fiercely, casting an otherworldly luminescence that chased away the torch's dull yellow glow. The guards paused at the entrance, shielding their eyes as if blinded by a vision beyond mortal scope. Dr. Fatih seized the moment, cradling the disk like a fragile heart, and they backed toward a narrow alcove sealed by sandstone blocks. Elena whispered a hurried incantation in old Egyptian words she had deciphered from the papyrus fragments, hoping to seal the chamber once more until a safer time. The sandstone blocks trembled, shifting to close the passage just as the guards' torches flickered through the threshold one last time. Silence engulfed them again, broken only by their ragged breathing and the faint hum emanating from the disc. They pressed their backs against the smooth wall of the alcove, hearts hammering, as footsteps receded and the temple's mechanisms reset themselves as if never disturbed. Momentarily safe, they clutched the disc, aware that the path ahead remained uncertain, its secrets both a blessing and a curse. Emerging at dawn into the precincts of the temple, they found the Sphinx's paw aglow with the first light casting long shadows across the plateau. No trace remained of the side temple's entrance, as though the earth had swallowed it back into oblivion. Dr. Fatih and Elena shared a solemn nod, knowing that the disc's knowledge must be protected until the time was ripe, when the next cosmic alignment might offer humanity a glimpse of its forgotten destiny. As they departed the plateau, the wind stirred once more, carrying with it the scent of myrrh and desert rose. Magicians and mystics would speak of that night for generations, but the true story would remain hidden, locked behind the Sphinx's unblinking gaze, awaiting the next seeker brave enough to listen to its silent call. And so beneath the eternal sands, the guardians sighed in relief, confident that the secrets hidden beneath the Sphinx's paw would endure guarding their mysteries until the world could bear to know. They descended from the plateau just as the rising sun painted the desert in molten gold, each step carrying the weight of what they had unearthed. Dr. Fatih's knuckles whitened around the disc. Its glow, though faint, reminded him that it pulsed with truths far older than any modern civilization. Elena moved beside him, her eyes scanning the horizon as if expecting shadows to form into pursuers at any moment. They found refuge in a small, whitewashed kasbah on the edge of Giza, its walls suffused with the scent of cooling adobe and spices. Inside, a single room held a low table, carpets worn thin by countless guests, and an alcove where a lantern cast dancing shadows across the ceiling. This would be their sanctuary until they determined a safe time to study the disc further, yet even here they could not escape the sense of being watched. A thin breeze stirred the curtain as Elena laid the disc on a piece of black velvet, its crystalline what-if shimmering in the lamplight. She placed a small magnetic analyzer beside it, a device she had smuggled from her lab in Madrid, hoping to decipher the metal's composition without destroying the artifact. Dr. Fatih hovered at the doorway, his mind racing through risks. If the disc's presence leaked, factions of zealots or profiteers would descend like vultures, each intent on exploiting its power. Outside, the streets hummed with early commuters and donkey carts laden with date palms, unaware that a singular object rested behind that unassuming door, a doorway flanked by weathered wooden beams and an iron latch that groaned in protest whenever opened. Elena instructed Fatih to keep watch while she calibrated the analyzer, the instrumentation beeping softly as it warmed. He leaned against the cool plaster, glancing at a faded photograph of his grandfather in an academy cap, an image he seldom revisited yet felt pressing portentously tonight. Moments later, the analyzer registered trace isotopes of meteorite origin mingled with bronze alloys that defied conventional chronology. Elena's fingers traced the disc's radial grooves, marveling at how the ancient craftsman had fused cosmic dust with terrestrial ore. "Whoever made this understood metallurgy on a level we cannot yet fathom," she whispered, voice trembling with both reverence and unease. The Kasbah's single window framed a sliver of sky where dawn clouds drifted an image so serene it felt jarringly at odds with the arcane mystery nestled inside. Dr. Fatih joined Elena by the table, leaning closer to study the analyzer's readout isotopic ratios corresponding to elements synthesized only under extreme pressure, reminiscent of deep Earth geology, or perhaps extraterrestrial impact. He exhaled, realizing the disk could be a relic of a cataclysmic age when Earth's crust pulsed with powers now buried beneath time. Elena rotated the disk gently, and her lamp's glow revealed tiny inscriptions along its edge, cuneiform-like marks pointing to locations that mapped roughly onto modern landmarks, yet were rendered in coordinates corresponding to vanished rivers and coastlines. She deciphered the first phrase aloud: "Memory lies where waters met the sky." The words resonated like an echo in the room, suggesting a location now submerged beneath shifting sands or receding shorelines, an invitation to follow a trail long erased. Fathi recalled Bedouin legends of a great lake once spanning the eastern Sahara, known as Lake Moeris, now reduced to scattered oases. But further back in time, some geomorphologists had proposed a vast inland sea that drained millennia ago, reshaping climates and civilizations. Could the disk point to ruins beneath those ancient waters, a city or library sealed by nature before pharaohs ever rose? They plotted the coordinates roughly on a crumpled map of Egypt, marking where white quartz deposits had once formed natural mirrors on the desert floor. Elena traced her finger along a faint curve, the Wadi al-Natrun, west of the Nile, an area known for monastic retreats, but seldom linked to pre-dynastic kingdoms. If the disk's clues were accurate, a hidden repository might lie at the western edge of the desert, now inaccessible, save to those willing to traverse barren expanses. Night deepened as they finalized plans, procure camels and guides under the pretense of a geological survey, carry minimal equipment and strike before anyone could intercept them. Fathi felt the enormity of the risk, aware that each moment spent deciphering the disk increased their vulnerability. Still, the promise of revelations buried beneath desert sands outweighed the fear that twisted his gut. At dawn, they slipped out of the Kasbah, stowing the disk within a leather satchel cushioned by layers of old linen. Their guide, an older Bedouin named Saleh, led 2 sturdy camels laden with water, skins, dried dates, and a small portable generator. Saleh's sharp eyes and weathered face spoke of a life spent navigating shifting dunes, his silence both comforting and inscrutable. They traveled west along the ancient caravan routes, passing salt flats and rocky outcrops, where remnants of pottery sometimes surfaced, hinting at the presence of lost settlements. At night, sales pitches of distant markets drifted across campfires, the flicker of flames mirroring the flame of curiosity in Dr. Fathi's chest. He studied the stars as Elena mapped their progress, noting how the constellations she had cataloged in the temple reappeared overhead, silent guides in the boundless sky. On the 3rd evening, they reached an expanse of white desert, its chalky surface reflecting moonlight like a frozen sea. Saleh dismounted, prodding the ground with a long-stemmed sandalwood stick before nodding curtly. Here he murmured, voice low enough only Elena and Dr. Fathi could hear. They dismounted and formed a rough circle where the ground felt hollow beneath their feet, the final stage before excavation. Dr. Fathi's heart hammered as Saleh handed him a handheld seismograph, an improvised device that used hammer strikes to detect voids beneath. With measured force, Dr. Fathi tapped the seismograph sensor against the surface. The device beeped its readouts, indicating a significant cavity roughly 8 meters below. Elena set up a small tripod to mount a ground-penetrating radar unit. Its frequency pulses revealed a rectangular shape, walls of cut stone likely buried for thousands of years. They spent the night digging under the veil of darkness, senses alert to every shifting grain of sand. Their trowels scraped through layers of wind-blown silt, exposing sandstone blocks bearing carvings reminiscent of those in the Sphinx's side temple. A faint glyph, a stylized star encircled by a serpent, emerged from the sand, confirming they had located the ruins indicated by the disk. With careful reverence, they pried at the void's entrance, revealing a narrow shaft descending into gloom. Saleh stepped back, crossing himself in silent prayer, as though the chamber ahead defied mortal trespass. Dr. Fathi and Elena exchanged a determined glance before lighting their headlamps and lowering themselves into the depths. The chamber's air was fetid with the scent of ancient dust and mineral-rich moisture. Their lamps caught walls lined with bas-reliefs depicting a watery expanse where boats traversed rivers that now no longer existed, carrying priests who bore tablets glowing like embers. Each figure wore a headdress shaped like a crescent moon, a clear echo of imagery they had seen within the Sphinx's hidden corridors. At the chamber's center, a dais held fragments of scrolls preserved within sealed clay pots, their necks cracked but still containing traces of organic material. Elena carefully lifted a pot, revealing brittle scrolls that crumbled like ash at the edges, but chemical analysis suggested they contained inks matched to the metallic papyrus traces. Dr. Fathi recognized the irony. The scrolls acknowledged the disk's existence, claiming it to be the soul of the lost sun, a cryptic metaphor they would need to decode. He unrolled a fragment, its ink-forming lines that spoke of a civilization resonating with celestial cycles, its people attuned not only to the Nile's floods, but also to cosmic rhythms. One passage read, "We are children of the starry firmaments, and when the moon's shadow reigns, the sun's soul shall guide us through the darkness." Elena translated, voice hushed. They believed the disk contained a piece of the sun's spirit, an eternal spark to light the way when darkness tore at their world. Dr. Fathi felt the gravity of their find. This was more than a mathematical tool. It was the heart of a belief system linking humanity to celestial forces. As they gathered fragments, Saleh's raspy whisper broke the hush. "We must leave before the night watcher arrives." They realized that shadows were creeping closer, footsteps echoing far above, piercing the silence like harbingers of discovery and danger. They packed as swiftly as possible, sealing texts and pots into sturdy cloth wrappings and placing the disk within Elena's backpack. Their ascent through the shaft felt arduous, each rung of the ladder a struggle against rising fear and exhaustion. At the surface, they paused, stars wheeling overhead, in silent testimony to all that had transpired beneath their feet. Beyond, they saw flickers of lamplight, guards patrolling the perimeter, their silhouettes defined by rifles and wary stances. Saleh urged them toward the camels, urging haste with trembling hands, as though the earth itself would swallow them if they lingered. Dr. Fathi clung to the disk's weight against his side, acutely aware that each moment brought them closer to exposing or losing everything. As dawn approached, their silhouettes disappeared into the dunes, leaving behind only footprints that whined and whined again upon the sands. Behind them, the chamber lay silent once more, its secrets safeguarded by layers of stone and silt. And above the Sphinx stood Sentinel, its stone gaze reflecting the first glimmer of sunlight, forever guarding the mysteries beneath its paw until the next turn of history's wheel. They crested the final dune just as the sun's fingers reached across the horizon, gilding the desert's ripples in molten gold. The camels trudged wearily beneath them, their breaths puffing like steam in the cool dawn air. Dr. Fathi pressed the disk closer to his chest, feeling its faint pulse as if it shared his racing heartbeat. Below the Nile's ribbon of jade glinted under early light, a ribbon tying them back to civilization's edge. Saleh guided them toward a hidden wadi, where date palms clustered around an underground spring, an oasis safe from prying eyes. They dismounted in silence, each lost in thought, the weight of their discoveries pressing upon them like a physical burden. Elena carefully laid the disk in clay pots on a weathered wooden table beneath the shade of a lone palm. She unpacked the scroll fragments, their brittle edges flaking as though longing to return to dust. Unfazed, she swept away grit and opened her leather-bound field journal, prepared to record every nuance of ink and morphology. Dr. Fathi filled a shallow basin with water drawn from the spring, using it to gently cleanse small potsherds of sand. Each fragment revealed glimpses of text that spoke in a language older than hieroglyphs, elongated dawn signs, intertwined with star glyphs. He felt as though his grandfather's voice hovered behind him. Truth often hides beneath a veil of silence, waiting for you to see. Outside, the wind stirred rustling palm fronds and carrying a distant murmur of voices. They sensed movement hunters of secrets, drawn by rumors of the disk and its celestial code. Elena snapped her journal shut and whispered, "We must move before they find us." Packing their precious cargo, they retraced these steps along a narrow footpath, threading through rocky outcrops. Beyond the nearest town of Badr stood like a cluster of low-slung rooftops, its adobe walls warmed by the rising sun. They hurried toward a secluded guest house known only to Saleh, an old friend who had sheltered many fugitives in times past. Inside the courtyard, a small garden flourished, its jasmine vines clinging to sun-baked walls. A mortared bench offered respite, and Saleh's wife appeared with bowls of sweet dates and cool water. Her eyes held understanding, as though she too knew the cost of safeguarding something that could reshape empires. Elena and Dr. Fathi worked in tandem, using a simple magnifying lens to study the scroll fragments and astronomical instructions. They sketched clusters of dots and lines mapping celestial positions against dates that belonged to epochs before dynasties. before recorded time. One scroll spoke of a twin eclipse in which both sun and moon yielded to a third light, perhaps a comet or planet visible to the ancients alone. As they debated the meaning, Dr. Fati detected a tremor in the air, a metallic tang that hinted at approaching machinery. Saleh's wife froze mid-motion, her gaze flicking toward a narrow alley beyond the courtyard gate. Footsteps sounded on worn stone, heavy and deliberate, followed by a low rumble of engines, motorcycles crawling toward the guest house. Elena's pulse thundered in her ears as she stashed her notes and scroll fragments within a hidden compartment of her satchel. Dr. Fati motioned for Saleh to open a trap door beneath the courtyard's tiled floor. Together, they slid through landing in a dim cellar layered with years of dust and the musty odor of stored grain. Above the guest house gate was thrown open with a crash. Harsh voices barked in Arabic. "Search every room. They cannot have gone far." The motorcycle's engines snarled closer, their tires clattering over cobblestones like metal drummers. In the cellar, Elena whispered, "We must reach Cairo. There we can find anonymity among allies." Dr. Fati nodded, extinguishing his lamp as others flicked out theirs to blend with darkness. Saleh emerged from shadows and pressed a hand to his lips, a gesture imploring silence. Moments later, the search team stormed the courtyard above pummeling doors and rattling windows. Through cracks in the floorboards, Dr. Fati and Elena heard curses as the intruders ransacked the guest house. Their hearts pounded like desert drums, each breath a prayer against the threat looming above. After what felt like an eternity, the pounding rhythm ceased. Faint footsteps clattered away their retreat, echoing like a receding tide. Saleh exhaled softly and guided them up a narrow ladder into a hidden lane behind the guest house. Before dawn's light fully broke, they mounted camels waiting under cover of palm fronds. Saleh led them north along dusty back roads that snaked toward Cairo, while hidden drones with pinpoint beams hovered overhead, scanning for heat signatures. Elena whispered, "They're using drones. They won't stop until they have what we carry." Dr. Fati felt cold sweat slick his brow as the minarets of Cairo rose on the horizon, their slender towers piercing the pale sky. The city's pulse beat differently, commerce, rumor, and suspicion coiled within its arteries. He wondered if sanctuary in the metropolis was possible, or a mirage quickly receding in the desert's glare. Saleh guided them to a safe house tucked within a labyrinthine neighborhood near Old Cairo, where narrow alleys wove like threads in a tapestry. They dismounted and approached a rust-streaked door which swung open to reveal a modest courtyard walled by tall, shaded buildings. Inside, a small study awaited a desk covered with parchment maps, a single oil lamp flickering at its center. Their contact, a scholar named Dr. Layla Haroun, emerged from a side room, her face framed by a worn hijab. She had heard their approach, bribed informants in passing caravans, and awaited with hushed urgency. As Elena lifted the disc from her satchel, Layla's breath caught her eyes, reflecting lamplight as though seeing the celestial spark within. In the cramped study, they laid the disc upon a fold-out table surrounding it with layers of protective linen. Layla retrieved an old projector lens, once used to study meteorites, and fitted it over the disc's surface. A quiet click sounded, followed by a soft hum as the lens refracted the disc's glow onto a blank wall. Lines of light danced and arranged themselves into a projection, circular diagrams of the heavens intersecting at precise angles. Layla's finger traced one of the circles. These aren't just star charts, they're instructions for building something. A device to bridge Earth and Squam. Elena leaned in, recognizing the same lattice patterns she had seen etched along the chamber's obsidian walls. Dr. Fati felt his pulse quicken as he stared at the projected image, a schematic for a celestial observatory, perhaps even a portal. Layla continued, "Look, alignment with Sirius, Orion, and a third unknown point. If constructed, this could focus cosmic energies beyond mortal comprehension." A cold shiver traveled down their spines. They understood the gravity, the knowledge to construct such a device could grant immense power or unleash calamity. Suddenly, a pounding on the metal door shattered the room's fragile calm, heavy fists hammering, as though intent on tearing down the walls. Elena hissed, "They found us," as Layla swiftly extinguished the lamp, plunging the room into near blackness. They scattered the projections, wrapping the disc in scrolls, in additional folds of cloth burying them among stacks of empty parchment. Footsteps thundered outside, followed by a muffled shout. "Open up, or we break down the door!" Layla pressed her palm to a hidden latch in the wall. A narrow panel slid open, revealing a sloped shaft leading downward the house's centuries-old escape route. One by one, they slipped into the corridor, careful to make no noise, each footstep coated in reverence for the secrets they bore. The shaft descended for several meters, ending in a subterranean passage lined with aged bricks. Beyond, a network of catacombs stretched under Old Cairo, once used by monks and then by traders seeking refuge. They advanced cautiously, senses suffused with damp air and distant echoes of dripping water. Above, a chorus of shouts rose and fell, as though the intruders realized they had misplaced their quarry. In the darkness, Layla guided them along twisting turns until they emerged into a forgotten crypt, its ceiling low torches long extinguished. Moonlight filtered through barred windows near the floor, casting pale beams onto cracked marble tombs, carved with angelic figures from the early Christian era. Here among ancient bones and carved epitaphs, they paused to rest, each heart still thrumming with adrenaline and fear. Elena glanced at the disc, now silent, as though gathering strength, and whispered, "We need to decide where it belongs. Trusted scholars alone cannot keep this safe." Dr. Fati closed his eyes, recalling the Sphinx's silent gaze, the hidden temple's vaulted halls, and the destiny whispered by celestial alignments. He realized that the disc and its knowledge belonged not to any one nation or institution, but to all humanity. If used for power or propaganda, it could fuel wars. If buried forever, the world would lose a fragment of its cosmic heritage. Summoning resolve, he opened his eyes and laid a hand on Elena's shoulder. "We take it to the International Council for Ancient Records in Geneva. It's our only hope for peer-reviewed preservation." Elena nodded, tears glinting in her eyes, understanding the sacrifice to surrender the disc into a system built on politics and red tape. Layla touched Dr. Fati's arm. "I will accompany you. My network can arrange discreet passage." Together they ascended back into the catacombs' heartbeats, synchronizing with the echoing drips of water, each beat a step toward an uncertain future. Outside, dawn unfurled over Old Cairo, the call to prayer weaving through minarets as though blessing their perilous quest. They emerged onto deserted streets, the city's hustle yet to stir, and melted into alleys leading toward the train station, each footstep echoing their shared determination. Behind them, the hidden chambers beneath the Sphinx's paw rested in silent anticipation, their guardians awaiting the ripple effects of knowledge that could reshape the world. They wove through Cairo's waking streets in the pale light of dawn, each turn bringing them closer to the railway station. The city's pulse throbbed beneath their feet, vendors arranging crates of figs, donkey carts clattering over cobblestones, and prayer calls drifting across rooftops like a lament and a blessing entwined. They moved as ghosts watchful of slipping shadows and prying eyes. Saleh guided them to a nondescript carriage parked at a secluded side entrance, its engine idling with gentle purrs. Inside, a man in a gray suit slid open a hidden panel revealing stacked suitcases and lockboxes perfect for concealing the disc and scroll fragments. Without a word, he nodded to Layla, signaling that their passage north would begin under the guise of diplomatic dispatch. By mid-morning, they were aboard a train bound for Alexandria, the carriages rocking them gently as the Nile's inland delta shimmered beneath windows. Elena pressed her palm to the disc inside its satchel, feeling its faint hum against her ribs, a heartbeat shaped by starlight and sand. Outside, deltas of irrigation canals traced patterns across the landscape, a reminder that human ingenuity could transform barren land into living arteries. They disembarked at the port as dusk gathered, stroking the horizon with strokes of purple and rose. A small service launch bore them across the Mediterranean to a freighted steamer bound for Marseille, its steel hull creaking and groaning like an ancient beast roused from slumber. Throughout the crossing, they kept the disc locked away, hidden beneath crates of spices and olive oil, destined for Europe, their hearts tuned to each toss of the sea. When Marseille finally appeared on the horizon, alabaster cliffs glowing in the morning light, they felt the weight of distance settle upon them. Europe unfolded as a tapestry of modern marvels, rail lines gleaming beneath power lines, factories belching smoke like smoldering altars to progress, and bridges arcing gracefully over rivers. Layla led them to a secure station where a black sedan with darkened windows awaited its driver, gloved and taciturn. They crossed into Switzerland by darkened roads, snaking through alpine passes where snow lingered despite late spring's warmth. Jagged peaks rose like silent sentinels, their white crowns glinting as sun and shadow played across them. In Geneva, the city's gleaming spires and manicured avenues greeted them like a promise of neutrality, a world shielded from desert sands and political clamor. At the International Council for Ancient Records, guards in crisp uniforms escorted them through marble halls into a vaulted chamber where a semicircle of desks faced a dais. Atop the dais, an auditorium light swung overhead, its glow illuminating a semicircle of chairs and the eyes of scholars, diplomats, and bureaucrats, each evaluating them as if they carried either salvation or ruin. Dr. Fathi's heart pounded as he carried the disc toward the front, aware that every breath now bore witness to history itself. A woman rose from the dais, the council's chair. Professor Marianne Leclerc, her gray hair coiled like a crown, eyes sharpened by years of academic battles. She spoke with measured grace, her voice echoing through the hall. "Welcome, Dr. Fathi, Dr. Vasquez, Professor Haroun. The council has convened in anticipation of what you present." Spectators held their breath as Layla unfurled the disc on a velvet cushion, a cosmic relic beckoning in polished bronze. Elena stepped forward, clearing her throat as the chamber's hush settled around her. This disc originates from a pre-dynastic civilization, an archive of celestial knowledge preserving an ancient world view. She recounted their journey's secret chambers beneath the Sphinx, hidden temples in the Western Desert scrolls that mapped vanished star charts, and the disc's potential to reveal lost technologies. Scholars leaned forward, pens poised, some exchanging skeptical glances, others eyes alight with the thrill of discovery. Dr. Fathi raised a palm. "We do not seek accolades or power. We require strict safeguards if this knowledge is to serve humanity rather than destroy it." He recounted the disc's metallurgical analyses, meteorite elements fused with mythic alloys, and the scroll fragments warning of twin eclipses signaling cycles of rebirth and decay. Questions erupted like flint striking steel. Was the disc's data accurate? Could the translations be trusted? What prevented modern misuse? A cloaked delegate from a Middle Eastern delegation rose, voice firm and cautious. "If this disk can forecast celestial events with precision, military applications are inevitable. We request strict embargoes." A North American representative countered, "Exclusive control within one block is untenable. We propose open archives with tiered access, scientists first, then public release after a review period." Whispers fluttered, some claiming the disk could rebuild world power balances, others warning that even disclosure might unravel entrenched religious narratives. Professor Leclerc raised her hands, calling for order, as candles of debate burned brightly. "Let us examine the disk's contents collaboratively. We will form a scientific task force representing all interested nations to oversee analysis." Elena exhaled relief, flickering like a fragile flame. Layla drew close, whispering, "We must ensure the task force remains true to the disk's purpose. Knowledge for enlightenment, not control." Dr. Fathi nodded, aware that in making public the disk's existence, their gamble shifted from concealment to stewardship. Over the next days, Geneva erupted into scholarly fervor. Labs and clean rooms prepared to handle the disk, magnetometers, spectrometers, and quantum analyzers primed for cosmic revelations. Simultaneously, a secure digital portal launched to host translations of the scroll fragments, inviting linguists, historians, and astrophysicists to collaborate in real time. Yet tensions simmered beneath academic enthusiasm. Leaks to the press surfaced rumors that the disk predicted a triple planetary conjunction in 287, something modern astronomy could confirm or deny. Conservative media outlets decried mushroom cultism, while fringe networks spun stories of alien architects embedding technology in the Sphinx's paw. Amid the whirlwind, Elena toiled in a sterile chamber, her gloved hands tracing every groove of the disk's surface. Dr. Fathi worked alongside her, cross-referencing celestial projections with known star catalogs and orbital mechanics. Layla shepherded legal agreements, ensuring intellectual property protocols respected ancient origins while balancing modern ethics. One evening, as twilight draped Lake Geneva in silvery hush, Elena invited Dr. Fathi to the lab's balcony. Above them, stars shimmered in silent council. She pointed to Orion's belt, arcing overhead. Our ancestors saw these same stars, though the skies looked different 10,000 years ago. He nodded, eyes thoughtful. What have we inherited now, Elena? A key to cosmic understanding or a Pandora's box waiting to unleash chaos? They returned inside to find Dr. Haroun awaiting them, her face pale under laboratory lights. Elena Fathi, you must see this. She led them to a terminal where a team of quantum physicists overlaid the disk's cosmic diagrams onto three-dimensional star maps. In one projection, they watched stars fade and reappear, simulating orbital precession calculations that aligned exactly with a predicted comet's return in 2028. Elena's breath caught. If this is correct, they tracked Halley-class comets centuries before any known record using orbital mechanics beyond early astronomy. Dr. Fathi traced coordinates. And here, these points correspond to locations now buried beneath Antarctic ice, suggesting global networks of observatories we have yet to discover. Shock rippled through the lab. The disk wasn't merely a celestial calendar. It was a blueprint revealing a planetary consciousness long erased by time. As dawn's first light filtered in, Layla entered with urgent news. The embargo has been compromised. A clandestine auction is being organized by an anonymous collector, bids starting at $10 million. Dr. Fathi clenched his fists. If private interests seize the disk, consequences could be catastrophic. Information, weaponized origins buried, humanity divided. Elena slammed a palm on the table. We must act now. We need to secure every copy, every fragment to prevent theft. They convened with the Council's security liaison, a stern general accustomed to classified operations. He disclosed a plot by a covert network of art smugglers and black market antiquities dealers fed by unscrupulous collectors craving forbidden treasures. Their plan to extract the disk from the lab under the cover of night, using forgers to replace it with a replica, then funnel the original into private vaults. The gravity of the threat tightened like a vice around the researchers' hearts. Security protocols intensified, armed guards patrolled corridors, access cards now tracked in real time, and biometric locks sealed every hatch. Yet they knew determined adversaries could exploit any weakness. Even the besieged had resources beyond imagination. Late that night, under projected moonlight, Dr. Fathi and Elena convened in a secure briefing room. Layla reviewed every security camera feed, each corridor mapped in grids of infrared lines. Elena spoke softly. We need a contingency digital blueprints of the disk's data stored off-site with encryption only we can decrypt. Dr. Haroun slid a USB drive across the table, a quantum encrypted key containing partial translations and cosmological calculations. Fathi added, I've arranged for a copy to be stored in the Vatican's secret archives, accessible only by unanimous council decree. Layla nodded, and I've reached out to a coalition of independent scholars in Japan and South Africa, planned replicas that mirror every trace of the disk's script. As midnight settled over Geneva, the lab's corridors grew silent, a deceptive calm reverberating through locked doors. Then the first alarm sounded, a red light flickered over a hallway camera indicating movement where there should have been none. Security guards scrambled, weapons raised as technicians watched the scene unfold on monitors, figures clad in black slipping through ventilation ducts. Elena's heart thundered. They're here, Dr. Fathi sprinted for the control panel, fingers flying across keys to seal doors and lock down the lab. Security teams converged, flashlights cutting arcs through smoke as a tense audience held at the threshold moments, stretched like elastic. In the darkness beyond, a whispered chant emerged, old Egyptian words woven into a prayer for shadows. Elena froze, recognizing the phrase from the temple scrolls, as moons align the path shall open. The realization settled like ice. The intruders weren't governed by mere greed. They believed in a mystical calling, seeking the disk to complete an ancient rite. Guards advanced, catching the intruders in the threshold. It was a clash of wills waged in silence. each breath charged with fanatic devotion. Within seconds, gunshots crackled, fists collided, and the corridor erupted into chaos. Security forces subdued figures in black, dragging them away as the alarms blared and responders flooded the labyrinth. Fathi and Elena emerged from the locked lab, adrenaline surging as they surveyed the aftermath flashlights trained on subdued figures in kneeling submission. Layla rushed to them, face pale but resolute. They came prepared with replica discs, plans to replace ours, and vanished before dawn. Elena exhaled in relief. Our security measures held, but this proves they'll stop at nothing. We must finalize wide dissemination of the disc's contents. As dawn tinged the sky rose, they met with council members in the grand chamber once more. Elena's voice filled the silent room. The disc is too powerful to remain centralized. We propose a full public release, digital archives, translated texts, and interactive simulations accessible to all scholars worldwide. A hush fell as chairs scraped and delegates exchanged glances heavy with consequence. Professor Leclerc rose at last, her voice resonant. The council votes full public release with educational safeguards. Let the world decide how to use knowledge freed from shadows. A ripple of relief and trepidation passed through the assembly, history pivoting on a single courageous resolution. Dr. Fathi felt the disc's buzz thrumming in his mind, a silent blessing born on wings of hope and fear. Outside, Geneva woke to a new dawn, unaware that it stood on the brink of a revolution of thought. News headlines flashed, ancient relic, redefines astronomy, epic of pre-dynastic science uncovered. Crowds gathered outside the council chambers, cameras flashing, as scholars led the first wave of global collaboration. Within days, digital repositories blossomed like constellations, servers humming with uploads of celestial charts, linguistic guides, and 3D renderings of the disk. Forums ignited with debates, historians pieced together cultural contexts. Astrogeologists tested the disk's orbital predictions. Ethicists pondered morality's role in cosmic knowledge. Across continents, classrooms buzzed as teachers introduced students to a heritage that spanned millennia, uniting humanity under a sky once venerated in secret halls. Yet even as celebrations rang out, shadows lingered, secret factions plotting to claim a piece of the disk's promise. Rumors swirled of corporate interests seeking to patent arcane technologies, of extremist cells seeking to resurrect forgotten doctrines, of black market auctions auctioning counterfeit fragments to the highest bidder. The disk's light, once hidden beneath the Sphinx's paw, revealed both the brilliance and the darkness of human aspiration. But in that brilliance lay possibility. New telescopes calibrated to the disk's ancient coordinates charts, predicting cometary paths decades in advance, and programs allowing anyone with an internet connection to map the heavens as their ancestors once did. For Dr. Fathi, Elena, and Layla, this was the triumph of stewardship, ensuring that the disk's legacy belonged not to the powerful, but to the curious, the seekers, and the dreamers. As the world reoriented itself under the celestial truths rediscovered, the Sphinx remained sentinel in Giza, its paw keeping company with secrets both revealed and yet to be understood. Beneath that silent guardian's gaze, humanity stood at the crossroads of past and future, forging a path guided by stars long out of reach, but now within the mind's grasp. And so the journey continued, an endless quest to understand the cosmos and in turn ourselves. The glow from laptop screens illuminated faces in dormitory rooms, from Tokyo to Timbuktu, as students and scholars alike charted star maps once sealed beneath shifting sands. Fathi watched live-streamed lectures from his small apartment, the golden disk perched on a secure pedestal beside him, its presence a constant reminder of both promise and peril. Outside his window, Geneva's night air felt crisp, carrying distant echoes of celebration mingled with whispers of trepidation. In centuries-old observatories perched high in the Andes, telescopes recalibrated to the disk's ancient coordinates revealed a faint looping comet invisible to modern star charts. Scientists gathered under thin oxygen skies, eyes reflecting swirling nebulae as they adjusted trackers to follow the comet's path, a celestial messenger once chronicled by pre-dynastic stargazers. The hush of the high-altitude night held a reverence reserved for discoveries that blur the line between myth and fact. Back in Egypt, a new generation of archaeologists fanned out across the Giza plateau. At dawn, their shovels redolent with the promise of unearthing the Sphinx's yet unclaimed secrets. Under the watchful gaze of nascent cameras embedded by international teams, they probed at bedrock near the Sphinx's right shoulder, where ancient texts hinted at an auxiliary passage linked to the disk's celestial algorithms. Each shovel full of sand felt like peeling away a layer of time, exposing echoes of hoary rituals lost beneath ages of neglect. Late spring storms swept across the Mediterranean as if nature conspired to test the resilience of newly revealed knowledge. Geneva's cobblestone streets glistened under heavy rain, street lamps casting distorted reflections that danced like phantoms of secrets half-spoken. Elena paused beneath an awning, the disk's hum faint even through the storm, its pulse steadying her racing thoughts. News bulletins reported political tensions flaring as world powers jockeyed to claim precedence in funding follow-up excavations. In Cairo, protests erupted outside the Ministry of Antiquities, with demonstrators demanding that all further exploration remain under Egyptian stewardship, a cry for sovereignty over a legacy their forebears once safeguarded in shadow. Amid the tumult, Dr. Fathi's voice rose in a global broadcast. Let us remember that the night sky belongs to all of us. The knowledge lost beneath the Sphinx's paw is a testament to our shared human story, one that transcends borders and ideologies. His words echoed across continents, prompting moments of silence in crowded city squares and echo chambers alike. Even corporate sponsors hesitated, wavering between profit-driven motives and the responsibility to preserve knowledge for posterity. In that fragile pause, the hum of potential victory lingered, tempered by the awareness that Pandora's light must be handled with care. Meanwhile, in a seaside villa on the Adriatic coast, a clandestine society convened under flickering torchlight. Members cloaked in dark robes traced their fingers over digital projections of the disk's radial designs, their voices low and rumbling with anticipation. They called themselves the Keepers of the Veil, a secret order convinced that the disk's power was either a divine gift or a path to ruin, one that humanity should neither abuse nor fully expose. Their leader, an enigmatic figure known only as the Custodian, tapped a slender finger against the projection. The disk's designs hint at a convergence point submerged beneath the Black Sea, a sunken city tied to the same celestial cycles that birthed the Sphinx's sacred chamber, he whispered. Eyes widened as members pondered whether to unearth lost realms or to let them lie dormant, fearing the repercussions of awakening ancient knowledge. On a windswept cliff overlooking the Black Sea, marine archaeologists prepared submersibles equipped with specialized sonar, guided by coordinates derived from the disk. At night, bioluminescent plankton flickered in the dark water, like terrestrial stars falling to Earth, as if beckoning the explorers towards secrets shrouded beneath waves. Rising currents carried the faint metallic scent of deep water, an olfactory whisper of mysteries waiting to be claimed. Underneath the inky depths, the submersible's lights carved through darkness to reveal stone blocks etched with pre-dynastic glyphs half engulfed by marine growth. The crew felt a collective shiver as they recognized fractured doorways leading into a submerged hall, its architecture a mirror of the chamber beneath the Sphinx's paw. Barnacles clung where once priests had passed, and silt drifted like snowflakes across inscriptions that hinted at a global network of observatories linked by celestial events. Back in Geneva, Elena and Dr. Fathi convened with hydrographers and linguists to cross-reference these underwater discoveries with the disk's star charts. Projected onto a curved wall, three-dimensional renderings of submerged halls overlapped with trajectories of ancient comets, revealing a pattern of cosmic alignments that spanned hemispheres. They realized that pre-dynastic civilization had thrived in an era when coastlines were different continents connected by land, now lost to rising seas, their observatories brought to ruin by shifting waters. In a vaulted basement beneath the International Council, a hushed debate unfolded. Legal scholars argued over ownership. Was the submerged site part of a single nation's heritage, or should it be placed under a new category of global patrimony? The hall's acoustics carried tension like an electric charge, each legal brief promising to twist destiny like a strand of DNA. News of underwater ruins sparked both wonder and fear. Tourist agencies' early morning broadcasts promised subaquatic expedition packages, while cautionary reports warned of grave robbers and unsanctioned divers seeking to strip artifacts for profit. Dr. Fathi, exhausted from negotiations and research alike, paced the lab's narrow corridor, watching screens flicker with sonar images, his mind grappling with the ethics of exploration amid rising tides of opportunism. In Cairo, the Sphinx Plateau glowed under the twilight sun, its silhouette a steadfast icon against the orange sky. Dr. Haroun arrived at the site with a small team of local Bedouin guides intent on re-examining the western shoulder of the monument for hidden markers. Among their supplies, they carried portable spectrometers and a single torch tools designed to reveal subtle shifts in mineral composition and shadow. As dusk bled across the desert, they detected faint inscriptions along the Sphinx's base glyphs that only revealed themselves under specific angles of moonlight. These glyphs depicted an image of a boat traversing a star-studded sea, an allegory for souls guided by celestial currents. One Bedouin elder pointing to the carvings murmured in his native tongue, "Our ancestors believed that those who could read the night could steer fate itself." Overhead, a gibbous moon traced a trajectory between Orion and Sirius, just as the inscription suggested. Haroun held her torch carefully, allowing the wavering beam to graze each glyph, illuminating adjacent symbols that spelled out coordinates far south toward a hidden valley lost to modern maps. She felt a thrill. The disk's knowledge was not static. It lived, breathed, and guided seekers across generations. That night, under a canopy of star satellite dishes and high-powered telescopes, tracked faint anomalies in electromagnetic fields over the southern desert. International teams coordinated through secure channels, pooling resources to fund a joint expedition to the newly indicated valley, anticipating the discovery of an overland counterpart to the submerged city. Their encampment, a constellation of tents and research vehicles, thrummed with electricity as specialists tested soil samples and scanned for voids that might hide ancient chambers. At dawn, they uncovered a narrow ravine carved by millennia of wind-blown sand. Along its walls, clusters of glyphs emerged, depictions of pre-dynastic rituals performed beneath transient glaciers that once capped now melted mountains. Their finds suggested a polar shift in climate that aligned with the disk's twin eclipse prophecy, a climatic cataclysm tied to celestial choreography. As geologists collected sediment cores, archaeologists found fragments of ceramic basins inscribed with proto-hieroglyphs recipes for extracting star metal alloys from ore. This correlation between desert ruins and underwater halls painted a portrait of an ancient network of knowledge nodes, connected by cosmic cycles and shared by a civilization now scattered by rising seas and shifting sands. The magnitude of their discovery filled the camp with hushed awe, scholars and local guides alike bearing witness to a history more vast than any had imagined. Meanwhile, back in Europe, the keepers of the veil watched these announcements unfold with increasing alarm. Their own expeditions, funded by shadowy backers, had met with obstacles, security forces thwarting unauthorized dives, and local governments enforcing antiquities protections. In a secret meeting room overlooking the Mediterranean, the custodian reviewed encrypted communiques. The world unites in curiosity. We must act swiftly to preserve the balance between revelation and ruin. As new revelations streamed in, Dr. Fathi convened a global summit in Geneva, bringing together indigenous elders, religious leaders, scientists, and ethicists. Under crystal chandeliers and amid marble columns, they debated whether humanity was ready to confront the full scope of pre-dynastic knowledge. Voices rose and fell. Some urged continued openness. Others warned that certain truths should remain veiled until the moral fabric of society caught up with cosmic understanding. One elder from the Sahara rose, his skin weathered like sandstone and his gaze piercing. Our forebears guarded the disk's secrets because the world was not yet ready. The knowledge is a seed that must be nurtured with wisdom, not spilled recklessly onto dry earth. His words resonated like a desert wind, reminding delegates that knowledge alone did not guarantee progress. It required stewardship rooted in compassion and foresight. That evening, as the summit adjourned, Dr. Fathi gazed across Lake Geneva's placid surface. The sun sank behind alpine peaks, casting lengths of purple shadow across water that mirrored the sky's swirling colors. He felt the disks hum as a cautionary heartbeat, an echo of ancient watchers who once set the cycle in motion. In the weeks that followed, decentralized research pods formed across the globe. A cooperative in Tucson studied the disk's orbital mechanics to develop sustainable climate models. A consortium in Mumbai explored linguistic parallels between pre-dynastic scripts and early Indus Valley symbols. And a fellowship in Brasilia investigated the environmental collapse patterns aligned with ancient comet passages. Each pod operated within an open-source framework, sharing data in real time, as though weaving a collective tapestry of rediscovered heritage. Yet shadows persisted. In the depths of the Pacific, a research submarine detected signs of another submerged structure, its architecture hinting at a fourth node in the global network once governed by pre-dynastic astronomers. News traveled via encrypted satellite links to Jalalabad, where Mujahideen warlords eyed the disk's technologies not for cosmic enlightenment, but for tactical advantage, seeking to weaponize knowledge of atmospheric shifts. In Moscow, corporate magnates plotted to patent star metal alloys for use in aerospace manufacturing, pledging to sidestep ethical oversight in the name of progress. Caught between history's promise and present-day greed, Elena penned a missive to every research pod. Let us remember that custodianship is not control. We must honor the cycle our ancestors wrote in Stonewater, and sky guarding the balance between revelation and ruin, with stewardship forged from empathy and courage. Her words rippled across networks, stirring dialogues on ethics and responsibility that reached beyond scientific disciplines into the heart of what it means to be human. Under the bronze patina of the disk, nestled within Geneva's climate-controlled vault, it continued to pulse with ancient resonance, its concentric grooves alive with the hum of starlight. As the world embraced new chapters of untold history, the Sphinx remained silent in Giza, its paw safe once more from curious fingers. Yet beneath its stone foot, the seed of knowledge had taken root, destined to blossom in minds courageous enough to learn and wise enough to know when to wait. Under the humid dusk of the Pacific, the research submarine's lights carved arcs of phosphorescent blue through inky water. Dr. Naveen Kapoor, a marine archaeologist, peered through the viewport as the submersible hovered above a yawning collapse, a threshold into a sunken citadel etched with spiraling pillars and concentric courtyards. Each stone block bore glyphs faintly luminescent in the sub's floodlights. Circles within circles, spokes radiating outward symbols matching those on the disk, as though encoded across hemispheres and centuries. The sub's robotic arm gingerly extracted a block encrusted with coral. Naveen traced the glyphs with a gloved fingertip. The coral had grown around inscriptions of cosmic knots, stars connected by sinews of light. In the eerie hush beneath the waves, he felt a shiver. These were no chance symbols, but a cathedral of knowledge built by ancestors. Before seas swallowed lands, an underwater counterpart to the Sphinx's sanctum linked by cosmic resonance. Above him, the seas roiled under a rising storm, as if the ocean itself bristled at their intrusion. Back aboard the support vessel, researchers monitored readings, seismic sensors trembling with half-whispered pulses, hydrodynamic patterns flickering, as if displaced by unseen energies. Dr. Kapoor's comm crackled, "We've found an energy node aligned with the disk's specific coordinates. Deploy the magnetometers and begin scans of subsurface anomalies." The sub's sonar pinged across a vast chamber carved into basalt. In one corner lay a crystalline prism, polished facets catching the sub's light and splitting it into spectral ribbons that danced across stone columns. Aboard the sub, Dr. Kapoor's breath caught the prism was a smaller cousin to the Sphinx Temple's crystal sphere, meant to refract celestial energies deep underground, or in this case, deep underwater. He whispered to himself, a triune network, Sphinx's Palm Mountain Observatory, and now Pacific Depths, nodes of a planetary web. Storm clouds gathered overhead, thunder rumbling like a drum roll as the sub returned to the surface. The expedition's leader, Captain Lucia Reyes, met Dr. Kapoor on the deck, wine whipping her hair as rain began to pelt the deck. "We have to decide further penetration risks and disturbing structural integrity. This prism might be an ancient power source. We can't risk collapse." Dr. Kapoor nodded, torn between urgency to document and caution against triggering unknown mechanisms. The submarine's lights blinked out in the storm-dark water, leaving only distant flashes of lightning to illuminate ghostly outlines of sunken walls. Within hours, news of the Pacific node ignited a frenzy. Marine biologists spoke of tremors affecting deep-sea ecosystems. Climatologists warned that tampering with underwater energy nodes might shift currents. Meanwhile, corporate-backed salvage teams loomed offshore, their black-hulled ships bristling with cranes and lights, prepared to retrieve artifacts for auction. In response, a coalition of environmentalists and heritage groups mobilized, appealing to the United Nations to declare the site a protected heritage zone. The tension between conservation and exploitation crackled like static in the tropical air. Back on land, Dr. Kapoor convened with marine engineers and ethicists in a makeshift lab on a nearby island. Sand drifted through open windows, mixing with the static hum of computing equipment. He held a small vial containing mineral samples scraped from the prism's surface, a dust of metallic crystals that glimmered under lamplight. Dr. Kapoor explained, "These crystals exhibit piezoelectric properties on a scale we cannot yet replicate. If harnessed correctly, they could provide sustainable energy, yet if misused, they might destabilize tectonic plates." The group fell silent, the implications hanging like a storm cloud ready to burst. On the opposite side of the globe, in a lecture hall at a university in Mumbai, graduate students projected holographic reconstructions of the Pacific site, overlaying currents and geological data. Professor Ishani Desai, lead linguistic anthropologist, translated newly retrieved inscriptions from the sunken citadel, revealing a prophecy: "When the world's waters cover the sky, the prism's light shall guide wayward souls toward transformation." A hush fell. Was this a promise of salvation or a warning of cataclysm? Her students whispered among themselves, their voices tinged with both excitement and dread. That night, as monsoon rains battered the coast, Dr. Kapoor lay awake in his bunk, the disk's hum echoing the storm's cadence in his mind. He recalled the elders' caution. Knowledge is a seed that must be nurtured. Could humanity nurture such a discovery without succumbing to greed? Lightning flashed, illuminating the prism's shadows on the lab wall, an otherworldly tapestry of light and darkness dancing in his mind's eye. Meanwhile, in the Andes, the observatory atop Cerro Illimani recalibrated its telescopes for the disk's Antarctic coordinates. Dr. Catalina Marquez, an astrogeologist, adjusted her instruments to track a faint magnetic anomaly beneath the ice shelf, another node hinted at by the disk's celestial designs. Her team deployed ground-penetrating radar across a glacial expanse, revealing parallel ridges beneath the ice-stone walls snaking beneath layers of frozen water. Catalina realized this was a fourth node buried beneath ice for millennia, evidence that pre-dynastic architects built observatories on every continent, attuning to cosmic cycles from polar heights to ocean depths. Her team braved sub-zero winds to drill through meters of ice, extracting core samples laden with mineral veins, matching those at the Pacific and Giza sites. They found shards of the same crystalline material, blurred by time, but unmistakable in composition. Catalina whispered into her recorder, "The nodes form a tetrahedron spanning Earth's axis, an ancient mechanism for channeling cosmic energy." As the wind howled, she felt the enormity of the discovery settle in her bones, a network designed to focus and balance planetary forces. In Geneva, the International Council's halls buzzed with new urgency as updates streamed in from the Pacific and Andes nodes. Council members convened a special session in a circular chamber whose vaulted ceiling resembled a star map, a fitting setting for deliberations that might decide humanity's future. Dr. Fatih Elena and Layla presented coordinated findings. "We stand at the intersection of history and destiny. These nodes, united by the disk's blueprint, form a lattice of energy across the globe, able to sustain ecosystems or unleash disaster." Delegates whispered heatedly, Some proposed immediate deactivation of the nodes, an impossible task given their submerged and frozen locations. Others argued for harnessing the network to mitigate climate change, channeling cosmic energy to restore polar ice or moderate sea levels. A hush fell as indigenous representatives from the Amazon stepped forward garbed in ceremonial regalia. Our peoples have long sung of the world's heartbeats. These nodes resonate with life's pulse. You cannot sever them. You must learn their song to guide healing. Their words struck a chord echoing across the chamber. Representatives from 10 nations voiced support for a new directive, established a global stewardship council including indigenous custodians, scientists, and ethicists to govern research and application of the node's energies. The resolution passed its weighty promise, carrying the hope that technology and tradition might intertwine to safeguard the planet. As spring edged towards summer field, teams spread across deserts, oceans, and ice to lay groundwork for stewardship stations, small research outposts where local communities would partner with scientists. In the Sahara's southern reaches, a desert station atop an ancient dune arrayed solar panels alongside nomadic encampments, integrating modern energy harvesting with centuries-old desert wisdom. In Papua New Guinea, coastal villages collaborated with marine biologists to monitor the Pacific Prism's influence on reef currents, blending ancestral seafaring knowledge with hydroacoustic sensors. And in Antarctica, research pods atop the Illimani Ridge function as living laboratories where glaciologists, tribal advisors from Arctic nations, and astrogeologists work together to decode crystal shards beneath melting ice. Back in Geneva, Dr. Fati gazed at the disk in its climate-controlled vault, aware that beneath its bronze surface lay the seed of a new epoch, an era where humanity could either transcend its divisions or fracture under the weight of ancient power. Outside, he sensed the city's heartbeat trams gliding on iron rails, cafe patrons sipping espresso, and distant church bells marking the hour. Yet beneath that veneer of normalcy, a global web-pulsed research pod, stewardship councils, indigenous guardians, each node in a tapestry, stretching from Giza's shifting sands to Pacific depths and polar heights. Late one night as the moon cast alabaster light over the Rhone River, Elena joined Dr. Fati on the balcony of his apartment. She held a tablet displaying holographic data streams, real-time readings from deserts, seas, and ice fields. "Look," she said, tracing a glowing line that arced across the screen. "The energies from each node are beginning to resonate in unison. The harmonic frequencies match those carved beneath the Sphinx's paw." Dr. Fati exhaled slowly. "The network is awakening, an echo of our ancestors' intentions. We must guide it toward balance, not power." In the distance, fireworks erupted over Geneva's lakeshore, a festival celebrating the summer solstice, and unbeknownst to revelers, the first year of the Global Stewardship Initiative. Dr. Fati watched bursts of color dance above water, feeling a wave of hope that humanity could embrace the marvel of cosmic heritage without succumbing to its temptations. Elena placed a hand on his shoulder. "This is only the beginning. The disk's purpose was never destruction. It was a beacon to unite us under the sky." As the fireworks glittered against the night, the disk's faint hum resonated through the vault like a heartbeat echoing across time. Beneath the world's shifting sands, rising seas, and melting ice, the nodes lay in wait, silent sentinels of cosmic knowledge. And as long as humanity listened with humility, they would continue to guide future seekers toward unity, wisdom, and the eternal dance between earth and stars. A hush settled over Geneva as dawn's pale light spilled through tall windows, illuminating the council's chamber tables, strewn with holographic star maps and crystallized chip samples. Dr. Fati, Elena, and Dr. Haroun reclined in carved wooden chairs after the marathon session that stretched long into the night. They felt the residue of collective astonishment, a planetary network hidden for millennia, now pulsing under human stewardship. Outside, street vendors prepared carts of fresh bread and espresso, unaware of the seismic shift occurring within ivory towers. Children in schoolyards recited lessons on geometric alignments, mapping constellations once deemed myth. In laboratories, early career scientists pored over spectral analyses of the Pacific Prism, discovering that the crystal shards, when exposed to ultraviolet light, emitted wavelengths attuned to atmospheric oscillations. Elena sat at the chamber's edge studying real-time data that streamed in from desert monitors. Sahara meteorologists reported that small, carefully modulated vibrations drawn from the Giza node slightly had reduced local sandstorm intensity. Prehistoric winds now guided by ancient resonance. She whispered to Dr. Fathi, "They're using the network not merely to predict weather, but to gently restore ecological balance." He nodded, recalling how the lakes in the Arabian desert once shimmered under pre-dynastic skies long before rivers receded. Now faint signs of groundwater revival trickled across satellite imagery, as if the network's subtle hum coaxed buried aquifers awake. Dr. Haroun, sifting through anthropological notes, remarked, "Our ancestors wrote of a world where stretches of desert bloomed at the alignment of twin moons." Perhaps this is their legacy reawakened. Meanwhile, in Cairo, optimism mingled with apprehension. Local archaeologists resumed probing near the Sphinx's forearm, guided by updated scans revealing a narrow fracture one they believed led to an auxiliary chamber. Under a blazing sun, they cleared debris to reveal a threshold carved with serpentine glyphs that matched symbols on the disc. The air grew thick with incense smoke as a small group of priests performed a ritual blessing invoking Uraeus serpent imagery to ensure safe passage for researchers. Dr. Haroun, flown in from Geneva, descended first into the chamber, where lamplight revealed walls of polished limestone etched with diagrams of celestial mechanics. One panel depicted the Sphinx's paw raised as a lever channeling moonlight into a crystalline conduit beneath ground. She traced a line with her gloved finger. This corridor once directed lunar energies toward an underground oval, mirrored by the Pacific Prism, a conduit linking Giza to the deep sea. As she spoke, her words echoed in the hush as though the chamber itself listened. In that subterranean hush, explorers felt the pulse of ancient guardians watching. Their footsteps stirred centuries of dust as they inched toward a low dais carved with twin serpents whose eyes were inlaid with smoky quartz. When they knelt to examine their spectrometers, detected faint electromagnetic signatures, an afterglow of the prism's resonance now traveling along buried stone veins. As the Cairo sun reached its zenith, they activated portable muon detectors suspended above the dais. The readings registered a void in antechamber at right angles, sealed with plaster faintly tinted crimson. Dr. Haroun's breath caught. That pigment is riogar used in pre-dynastic rites to signify rebirth. The priest sealed this room to protect its contents until the time of ascension. She tapped the plaster with a small chisel. It crumbled to reveal a shallow niche holding a single alabaster sphere, its surface etched with microglyphs beyond naked comprehension. Carefully, they pried the alabaster orb from its niche, cradling it in foam-lined trays. Once lifted into sunlight, faint designs glowed under ultraviolet lamps, an astral chart mapping comets unseen to modern telescopes and solar flares predating recorded centuries. Dr. Fathi watched as data scrolled across his tablet. This sphere is a complement to the disk encoding solar events that shape pre-dynastic culture. It's a sundial, but dialed to solar storms rather than hours. News of the alabaster sphere's discovery rippled across academia, fueling debates about pre-dynastic scientific sophistication. Some historians argued that such complex celestial tracking required telescopes, suggesting early lens-making lost to antiquity. Others countered that the Egyptians simply tracked sunspot shadows on reflective surfaces. Regardless the sphere's existence broadcast a single truth: human ingenuity had reached farther into the cosmos than previously believed. Meanwhile, in Tokyo, researchers studied silicon crystallites derived from the sphere's surface, revealing minute inclusions of uranium isotopes consistent with cosmic ray exposure levels from 8000 BCE. Dr. Aiko Nakamura, an astrochemist, tapped images on her display. These inclusions match patterns from lunar samples gathered during Apollo missions, proof that pre-dynastic artisans captured moonlight and embedded it into stone. She slid a petri dish across the table. Spectroscopy shows traces of platinum group elements, rare on Earth's surface. Could they have sourced fragments from meteorites? As the world dissected each node's revelations, conservators in Marseille formulated guidelines for preserving delicate artifacts. A new field emerged, cosmic heritage conservation training specialists to care for materials forged in starlight and tempered by millennia. Workshops in Florence and Kyoto taught artisans to recreate adhesives based on pre-dynastic recipes, ensuring that reconstructions honored ancient craftsmanship. Yet for every step forward, a shadow lurked. In Moscow, corporate interests quietly reconvened, drafting charters to patent star metal alloys for aerospace contracts, bypassing ethical boards under layers of shell companies. In a high-rise boardroom, executives reviewed satellite imagery of the Andean node, planning clandestine drilling operations masked as mining enterprises. Their motto, "Whoever harnesses pre-dynastic energy first controls tomorrow." In Jalalabad, rumors circulated that a warlord had acquired blueprints of underwater labs seeking to weaponize seismic pulses to destabilize rival governments. Intelligence agencies scrambled to intercept encrypted messages. Commence Operation Dry Tide used seismic disruptors under Pacific Prism to generate localized tsunamis as both threat and display of power. Panic rose in coastal villages as military vessels patrolled shipping lanes, watched by anxious locals, fearful of invisible forces beneath waves. Amid growing geopolitical friction, a consortium of ethical scientists drafted the Universal Code of Chromatic Integrity, proposing that any application of node-generated energies require unanimous endorsement from indigenous councils, scientific bodies, and cultural custodians. Their charter stipulated that no single nation or corporation could unilaterally exploit cosmic resources inscribed with holographic seals replicating pre-dynastic emissaries' symbols. Media outlets branded it idealistic, a lunar dream, yet thousands of signatures from grassroots movements held weight on global forums. Back in Geneva, Dr. Fathi opened an encrypted video call with delegates from indigenous assemblies across continents. Elder Azul from the Patagonian Onakink tribe spoke first, his voice resonant with age. Our ancestors walked these lands under the same stars. They taught us that planets and rhythms bind us. We share our wisdom freely, teach others responsibility. Chief Mihana of the Pacific Islands nodded, adding, "The sea is our mother," she whispered to us, of prisms underwater. "Honor her or face her wrath. We stand against warlords and tycoons who would twist her power." Their collective resolve crystallized a path forward, a living treaty recognizing cosmic heritage as a shared legacy protected by cultural, legal, and spiritual guardians. Geneva's council ratified the Starlight Accords, establishing stewardship councils at each node, Giza, Sahara, Andes, Pacific, and Antarctic. These councils combine local tribal leaders, religious elders, scientists, and diplomats, ensuring that no single agenda overshadowed the web of custodianship. Across the globe, celebrations erupted as news of the Starlight Accords spread. In Cairo, lantern-lit processions circled the Sphinx at dusk, participants chanting in Coptic Arabic and ancient pre-dynastic dialects, a tapestry of languages echoing unity. In the Andes, llamas bedecked in woven headdresses carried Quipus Incan knot records, symbolically connecting Pacific knowledge to Andean guardianship. In Papua New Guinea, coastal tribes danced beneath ceremonial masks, sea winds playing through ancestral carvings as a tribute to the prism beneath the waves. Yet even as hope soared, the Sphinx remained a silent sentinel over shifting sands. In the late afternoon glow, one could still feel the ancient pyramid beyond its apex-piercing sunlit air. Dr. Fathi returned to its shadowed embrace, standing at the base of the Great Paw, his palm brushing cool limestone. He reflected on the journey from prophetic papyri and hidden chambers to submerged citadels and polar vaults, a story woven by ancestors whose names had dissolved in time. He knelt to press his ear to the stone, hoping to sense the faint reverberation of global node resonance. For a moment, the breeze lulled the world hushed, then beneath a labyrinthine hum, he heard a single contiguous pulse, a heartbeat woven into earth, water, and ice. It whispered of unity, challenge, and the eternal circle of knowledge, awaiting each generation's willingness to listen. As dusk deepened into starlit night, pilgrims from around the world gathered at Giza, their scarves fluttering in desert winds. Lamps were lit along the causeway, illuminating ancient texts read aloud in 10 tongues. They spoke of the disk's legacy, a charge to shepherd cosmic wisdom, to live in harmony with cycles beyond mortal ken, and to honor the web binding Earth to the heavens. In that luminous tableau, lamps, flickering desert winds rising, and countless faces aligned toward the Sphinx, the world felt both infinitesimal and boundlessly connected. The Great Paw's shadow stretched across the sands, a symbol of guardianship as enduring as stone itself, reminding all that the greatest secret was not buried beneath, but pulsing within each heart willing to embrace the cosmos. And so the secrets hidden beneath the Sphinx's paw remained an ever-evolving journey, from the earliest dream of Thutmose IV to modern stewardship councils, from the silicon depths of seas to the crystalline vaults beneath polar ice, from ancient scribes encoding cosmic harmony to disparate tribes rekindling ancestral bonds. The narrative continued, open-ended, luminous, and vast, echoing the ancient truth that knowledge unlocked is not a treasure hoarded, but a flame shared guiding humanity toward unity beneath the silent dance of stars. As the lamps dimmed along the Giza causeway and pilgrims dispersed into the desert night, a gentle stillness settled over the plateau, an echo of the ancient heartbeat beneath the Sphinx's paw. In the days that followed, new layers of discovery unfolded like petals, each revealing fresh questions tethered to the cosmic web laid bare. Emergence of the Desert Library. Several weeks later, a small expedition returned to the Giza site with specialized scanning equipment adapted to the dune's shifting contours. Guided by the resonant signatures detected in earlier Miwon surveys, they traced a faint subterranean corridor extending west from the Sphinx parallel to the causeway, yet buried under meters of windblown sand. Dr. Haroun, now fluent in the archaic glyphs, led a team of linguists and geophysicists to excavate carefully their trowels, moving like whispers across time. At first, only a shallow void emerged, a winding tunnel whose smooth limestone walls bore carvings too eroded to read without enhancement. Using portable photogrammetry, they captured high-resolution images and constructed digital overlays that restored missing lines, revealing a sequence of scenes: scribes hunched over scrolls, priests igniting ceremonial braziers, and philosophers gazing skyward through rudimentary sighting rods. Each tableau hinted at a desert library, a repository of knowledge complementary to the nodes intended to preserve and disseminate understanding to future generations. Deeper within the tunnel opened into a vaulted chamber high enough to stand in its ceiling, supported by pillars carved with the star chart constellations. A soft, phosphorescent lichen coat glowed beneath ultraviolet light, illuminating scenes of a priesthood recording solar eclipses and tracking the Nile's flood cycles alongside celestial events. At the chamber's heart lay a stone dais bearing remnants of papyrus scrolls, some intact enough to reveal phrases like, "Know the patterns that govern life, and you shall temper chaos with harmony." Dr. Haroun lifted one scroll fragment and held it to a microscope. The black carbon ink still adhered, describing a manual of conduits, instructions for constructing small reflectors that channeled solar and lunar energies into focused beams. She read aloud, "From north to south align the 8 pillars so that on the day of the second solstice, their shadows converge as a path for seekers to walk a journey of light and stone." These lines suggested the chamber not only stored knowledge, but was itself a functional teaching instrument, an architectural lecture illustrating cosmic principles in practice. As word of the Desert Library spread, interdisciplinary teams convened to decode each papyrus, rendering translations into a digital archive. Historians marveled at references to the Brotherhood of the Horizon, a collective of stargazers who apparently built the library to ensure knowledge persisted through upheaval. Conservationists carefully sampled the lichen, determining it formed a biofilm that naturally preserved the limestone inscriptions, ancient custodians even before human intervention. Thus, the Desert Library emerged not only as a static archive, but as a living monument, its very decay actively recording environmental shifts over millennia. 2. The caravan network rekindled. Emboldened by discoveries at Giza, cultural ambassadors from North Africa embarked on an initiative to revive the caravan routes that once connected desert oases to Mediterranean ports. They organized a symbolic caravan that would retrace trade paths used by Pharaoh's emissaries, bearing scrolls reproductions of alabaster spheres and crystalline shards to communities along the way. Dr. Haroun joined as an envoy, carrying maps that overlaid pre-dynastic star charts onto modern GPS waypoints, guiding caravanners with both moonlight and technology. The caravan began in Luxor, where a dawn ceremony at Karnak Temple invoked Amun-Ra's blessing for safe passage. Over wind-scoured plains and rocky passes, camels laden with colorful tents wove a living ribbon of cultural exchange. Bedouin elders sharing oral histories, desert botanists teaching oasis ecology, and stargazers conjuncting over night skies at each encampment. In towns like Sohag and Asyut, locals gathered for lantern-lit readings of papyrus passages, sitting cross-legged as translators interpreted ancient poetic lines describing cosmic dance and human responsibility. Children sketched glyphs in the sand, elders hummed archaic chant fragments, and apprentices fashioned miniature solar reflectors modeled after the Desert Library's Manual of Conduits. Upon reaching Alexandrian docks, the caravan displayed its wares alabaster sphere replicas glinting under sunset star metal jewelry, crafted from Pacific prism fragments and digital kiosks projecting the starlight accords in 10 languages. Historians in white lab coats offered interactive lectures on how pre-dynastic sailors used lunar reflections to navigate coastal waters, while engineers demonstrated how modern telescopes calibrated to ancient coordinates could detect exoplanet candidates. In the Grand Hall of Alexandria's Bibliotheca, a symposium convened from papyrus to photons, bridging millennia with pre-dynastic wisdom, attended by scholars worldwide. This renewed caravan network did more than celebrate heritage. It reconnected communities along forgotten trade arteries, sparking economic revitalization and cross-cultural exchange. Nomadic guides resumed guiding researchers through Hidden Wadi's oasis-based cooperatives, grew date palms, using aquifer data gleaned from Giza's subterranean surveys, and marine folk in north of Sinai learned distillation techniques from Amal, a Bedouin healer who recited ancient formulas etched in desert library scrolls. Thus, the hand of pre-dynastic custodians reached across generations, reweaving the social fabric once severed by shifting sands. 3. The Northern Observatory Awakening. As autumn leaves turned golden in Geneva, Fathi received word of a secret accord from northern communities near the Arctic Circle. A remote observatory built upon an old fishing outpost had awakened. Their collaborators, Sami reindeer herders, spoke of faint, luminescent patterns dancing across the sky during the polar night auroras that corresponded precisely with lunar configurations and encoded on the stainless steel sphere recovered from Giza. Dr. Haroun and Elena flew to Tromsø, where a team of astrophysicists awaited at a refurbished radio telescope station. Under a tapestry of shifting stars and swirling auroras, they explained. The sphere's data predicted a rare alignment of Earth's magnetosphere in a distant sunspot field, an event only occurring once every 8,000 years. Their instruments recorded surges of charged particles traveling along geomagnetic field lines, an electrified dance between sun and planet that matched pre-dynastic descriptions of heavenly serpents weaving ribbons of light. Elena projected a simulation onto the observatory's dome-concentric waves of solar particles, streaming in from the Carrington event of 1859 back to cycles cataloged in pre-dynastic texts. She demonstrated how crystal prisms, identical to the Pacific and Antarctic shards, when oriented correctly, could refract auroral energies into guided beams, an optical phenomenon that in ancient times would have appeared as celestial pathways. The Sami elders nodded, recalling stories of shamanic journeys guided by these pathways, spiritual voyages facilitated by luminous bridges overhead. Together, they orchestrated a ceremonial activation, placing 3 prisms crafted from gently milled crystal at equidistant points encircling the telescope's base. As the magnetospheric alignment reached its peak, pulses of refracted light streamed through prisms, focusing into crystalline conduits that highlighted frozen snowfields and ice flows. The auroras, intensified by this optical network, danced in synchronized arcs visible even in Tromsø's ambient glow. That night, researchers recorded electromagnetic readings that suggested a subtle stabilization of atmospheric currents potentially mitigating winter storms over northern Europe. Local meteorologists reported calmer winds in fjords, and fisheries noted that plankton blooms in adjacent seas had modestly increased in early ecological ripple attributed to auroral modulation. For the Sami, the event affirmed ancestral teachings that cosmic cycles and terrestrial life coalesce in delicate balance, a bond that pre-dynastic stargazers encoded within stone and crystal. Which the global resonance mandala, back in Mar del Plata, Argentina, Sergio Martinez led a multidisciplinary team, assembling a global resonance mandala, an interactive installation mapping all known nodes from Earth's libraries and observatories onto a three-dimensional globe. Projected sensors detected magnetic, hydrodynamic, and atmospheric fluctuations in real time, overlaying them with historical event timelines from pre-dynastic texts. Visitors ranging from school children to grandmothers, council delegates, walk through concentric rings of light, each ring representing a facet of the network: stellar alignments, water currents, ice movements, and desert pulses. At the mandala's core sat a full-scale disc replica crafted from bronze alloys, matching isotopic analyses. When participants placed their hands on its surface, sensors triggered ambient soundscapes, winds softly ascending, to desert gales morphed into rising tides, and howling blizzards then receded into whispered temple chants. The data visualization above an immersive 360-degree display showed a web of light threads linking Giza Pacific depths, Andean heights, Arctic domains, and Antarctic expanse, each thread pulsing to the rhythm of Earth's core. Dr. Martinez explained during a guided event, "This mandala is not only educational, it's a living system. As you learn about each node's history and function, you contribute to a database of human intentions. The deeper our collective resonance, the stronger the network's capacity to stabilize ecosystems." A child pressed a sensor marking the Sahara node. Waves rippled through the simulation, showing potential expansion of ancient aquifers. An elder held a prism shard above a station mapping the Arctic node. Ripples projected across snowfields, illustrating changes in polar ice. The Global Resonance Mandala became both a teaching tool and a spiritual forum, hosting interfaith dialogues, indigenous storytelling circles, and scientific symposiums under its luminous canopy. It forged a new narrative that knowledge traced back to a single hidden seed beneath the Sphinx's paw could blossom outward, inviting each person to play a role in planetary stewardship. Confronting unfolding dilemma. Yet as the network's promise multiplied, so too did emergent dilemmas. A coalition of pharmaceutical researchers approached the Svetlana Institute in St. Petersburg with data indicating that groundwater patterns emerging around the Antarctic node might harbor previously unknown microbial life organisms with potential biotechnological applications. One lead scientist, Dr. Yuri Petrov, proposed an expedition to the Antarctic vault to collect ice core samples for pharmaceutical prospecting. Indigenous representatives from Inuit communities voiced concern that such sampling risked contaminating pristine ecosystems and violating ancestral custodial agreements. Simultaneously, a North African solar energy consortium petitioned the Cairo government to expand the desert library site into a large-scale solar farm, leveraging desert reflectors to power the city, drawing on ancient conduit designs. Archaeologists and cultural custodians argued that mechanized solar arrays would desecrate archaeological layers and sever the living link between community knowledge and pre-dynastic patrimony. In Rio de Janeiro, climate activists gathered outside the Pan-American Summit, demanding that any use of node energies prioritize ecological justice, ensuring benefits flow to communities most vulnerable to climate change rather than enriching private corporations. A coalition of Amazonian tribal leaders delivered a petition calling for a protocol of harmonious application, stipulating that cosmic energy harnessed through nodes must first redress environmental harms caused by industrial activities. Faced with mounting pressures, a special session of the United Nations convened, dubbed the Summit for Celestial Responsibility, bringing together diplomats, indigenous sovereigns, scientists, corporate executives, and citizen representatives. Under towering chandeliers in New York's General Assembly Hall, speakers debated questions that transcended disciplines. How to balance the drive for innovation with the safeguarding of fragile ecosystems in cultural heritage. Who holds the authority to license node-based technologies that affect transboundary waters or polar regions? Can ancient custodial principles be codified into international law without diluting their spiritual essence? Dr. Fatih addressed the assembly. Our ancestors embedded ethical imperatives within every inscription and artifact. They did not merely track stars, they entrusted us with stewardship. We must honor their mandates not through bureaucracy alone, but through active partnership, uniting diverse voices in shared guardianship. Over days of impassioned debate, delegates shaped the Celestial Custodianship Accord, a binding framework, recognizing nodes as global commons. Key provisions included indigenous sovereignty. Any activity affecting nodes, land, sea, or ice requires prior informed consent of local custodial communities with veto power over projects posing environmental or cultural risks. Transparent governance. A rotating council of stakeholders ensuring balanced representation oversees licensing of research and technological applications, subject to open accountability and periodic review. Equitable benefit sharing profits derived from node-based discoveries. Whether pharmaceuticals, energy, or data must fund community development, ecological restoration, and cross-cultural exchange programs. Cultural integrity. Skin expansions. Solar arrays observatories undergo rigorous impact assessments, integrating archaeological preservation, traditional knowledge transmission, and community co-management. Dynamic knowledge commons. Digital archives of text, translations, and data remain open source, fostering collaborative innovation while safeguarding sensitive cultural protocols through access-level measures. As applause rippled through the assembly, a sense of cautious optimism prevailed, recognizing that tension between ambition and reverence would persist but could be guided by principles distilled from the very texts unearthed beneath the Sphinx's paw. 6. The next generation's pilgrimage. Across continents, youth movements emerged. Star Seeders in Nairobi, Cosmic Weavers in Manila, Aurora Guardians in Iqaluit, each founded upon principles drawn from the Accord. Their initiatives range from citizen science projects, cataloging node-related environmental impacts, to artistic expressions, murals depicting pre-dynastic journeys rendered on walls of urban neighborhoods. In Johor, Malaysia, students built a miniature desert library within a school courtyard, modeling architectural features scaled to local materials, hosting communal reading sessions under solar-powered lamps. Back in Giza, a summer camp welcomed children from Cairo's neighborhoods and surrounding Bedouin communities. Led by Dr. Haroon and Bedouin elder Amal, campers rotated through workshops. Glyph carving sessions. Learning to inscribe papyrus replicas with pre-dynastic symbols under guidance of skilled artisans. Stellar navigation drills. Using simple sextants and laser pointers to track Orion's belt and Sirius, echoing ancient methods updated with modern optics. Desert ecology, hikes mapping microhabitats revealed by node-activated aquifer flows. Students planted date palm saplings and revived oases to sustain fledgling wetlands. On the Sphinx Plateau, the campers performed a ceremonial procession at dusk, carrying lanterns in a silent parade that mirrored the ancient processions depicted in desert library reliefs. Their whispered chants, simple phrases inscribed in Arabic, Coptic, and reconstructed pre-dynastic dialect, drifted over the sands, weaving a living tapestry of intergenerational memory. Second, toward an ever-expanding horizon. As the planet rotated inexorably beneath the night sky, the node network continued to reveal new facets of pre-dynastic legacy. Antarctic echo chamber. Geophysicists detected harmonic overtones emanating from a subglacial chamber near the Pacific. Node faint reverberations matching frequencies encoded on the alabaster sphere. A team of glaciologists prepared a long-term ice penstock project to channel these frequencies to surface sensors, hoping to model deep Earth resonance for earthquake prediction. Desert Soundscape Project sound engineers collaborated with Bedouin musicians to record dune song wind vocals that, when played through specialized reflectors modeled on conduit designs, generated frequencies beneficial to arid soil regeneration. Digital memory web computer scientists wove satellite feeds, node data, and historical archives into an AI-driven memory web, a decentralized network accessible via handheld devices that visualize node influences in real time, empowering local communities to respond adaptively to emerging environmental shifts. In the halls of academia, speculations abounded about yet undiscovered nodes. Rumors of similar structures beneath the high plateaus of Tibet, ancient salt deserts of Bolivia, and remote Atacama ruins off Chile's Pacific coast. Field teams dispatched small reconnaissance drones, elaborate flying prisms, laden with multispectral sensors, to scan for geometric anomalies correlating with pre-dynastic star maps. Ethnographers reached out to tribal elders across Southeast Asia and the Australian outback, learning of Dreamtime stories that hinted at subterranean halls buried under shifting sands and red earth underground temples, where elders once guided star children toward cosmic wisdom. In vibrant solidarity, a new global festival was conceived, Solstice of the Seed, to be held alternately at each node on the day of the summer solstice. During the inaugural festival at Giza, lanterns were affixed to floating platforms in a shallow pool adjacent to the Great Sphinx. Participants, scientists, pilgrims, musicians, and children placed sealed glass vessels containing notes of hope and stewardship onto the water surface. As the sun dipped below the western dunes, the floating notes drifted toward the Sphinx's silhouette, symbolizing that knowledge sown becomes the source of future harvests. A final hush falls over the Sphinx as the desert wind stirs ancient sands, carrying echoes of secrets too immense to be fully grasped. Beneath its paw, the heartbeat of a lost civilization still pulses, woven into stone, sea ice, and sky, waiting for those who dare to listen. In that subterranean chamber where alabaster spheres and crystalline prisms once channeled cosmic light, the boundary between past and future grows impossibly thin. What else lies veiled beneath shifting dunes or whispered by waters deep enough to conceal entire cities? Will the network of nodes continue to guide us toward balance, or will humanity's own desires rewrite the story etched by our forebears? As the night descends again over Giza, the stars wheel overhead in silent witness, their patterns unchanged, yet our understanding remains unfinished. So what will you seek next when you follow this path of hidden wonders? If your heart longs to uncover more ancient libraries buried in ice, shipwrecked observatories off distant shores, then join us again. Subscribe, light a lantern for the unknown, and prepare to journey deeper into mysteries that beckon just beyond tomorrow's horizon.